Chapter 38-29. Immediately following that, clang, a sound was heard. Her profound aura fluctuated as it gradually calmed down. The bewitching red light was still shining brightly, swaying her alluring figure. Everyone's sight was fixated on Yiqing Luo without blinking. They were all looking forward to witnessing the scene of a young lady breaking through the sage profound realm and stepping into the spirit profound realm. Stepping into the spirit profound realm and becoming a god was already a historical scene. Not to mention, and it was a young lady of Yiqing Luo's age. It could be said that in the entire earth boundary, they had never seen one. When the profound glow which enveloped Yiqing Luo's surroundings started to dissipate, their eyes were staring at Yiqing Luo without letting go. But when Yiqing Luo retracted her hand from the dead tree and opened her eyes, everyone's surprised and shocked expression froze on their faces. Did they see wrongly? Yiqing Luo's surrounding aura. Sage profound realm? But the aura of sage profound realm? There were quite a number of cultivators from large forces present with extremely high cultivation. They could easily sense Yiqing Luo's aura after her advancement. Most importantly, Yiqing Luo's surrounding sage profound aura was very unstable. This meant to say, Yiqing Luo's breakthrough this time was not the so-called stepping into the spirit profound realm, but from the sky profound realm to sage profound realm. Everyone's expression became extremely complicated. Each of them looked at each other, unable to believe their own eyes. How could it be possible to break through to the sage profound realm? She was obviously so powerful. She was so powerful that they felt that only this woman could be a match for the Dizun. But her profound grade was actually so unexpected. Previously on Yiqing Luo, they indeed only sensed an extremely weak profound aura. At that time, they thought this was just Yiqing Luo deliberately disguising her own strength. Unexpectedly. Was that true? Your expressions, what are you trying to express? A deep and husky voice, even if it was just a soft voice, it was extremely majestic. The moment the man opened his mouth, an invisible pressure was released. Everyone only felt a heavy pressure pressing on their shoulders. Overlord, overlord. Everyone's hearts sank as they spoke with trembling voices. Dmo Xian only lifted his eyelids. His eyes were very indifferent. His tone was also very indifferent. This lord's woman, whatever profound grade she is, it's not up to you to tell her what to do. His voice paused slightly. He had a faint smile on his face as the corners of his mouth twitched. He looked a little sarcastic. Just you bunch of trash, and you have the nerve to be surprised by little Luo'er's profound grade? These words were filled with sarcasm. Everyone felt a chill down their spines. They lowered their heads and stood ramrod straight. Zhou Mo snorted frivolously as he continued Dmo Xian's words and ridiculed. A bunch of high-leveled scum. Now that you know that you can't even defeat a sky profound realm cultivator, don't you feel ashamed? Everyone's pupils constricted. Leaning against Gui Wu, Zhou Mo crossed his arms across his chest and smiled like a yuppie. Could it be that this young master is wrong? You're a bunch of trash. In the face of danger, you only know fear and panic, but you're not willing to do anything. Aren't you ashamed to let a 15-year-old girl, a girl whose profound rank is much lower than yours, protect you? In a few words, the profound practitioners of the various major forces were flushed with anger, and their faces were flushed with anger. Chapter 38-30. They were indeed shocked by Yiqing Luo's profound grade. They also thought that a profound grade like Yiqing Luo shouldn't display that kind of sharpness. But they had neglected it. Yiqing Luo was a young sky profound cultivator, but she relied on her own strength to save all of them. It made them feel from the bottom of their hearts, treating her as the only hope to break the array. So what if their profound grades were higher than Yiqing Luo? So what if their abilities were above Yiqing Luo? They were totally incomparable to a young lady. On Yiqing Luo, profound grade wasn't important at all. Her potential, her ability, was the real reason why they were convinced. They shouldn't be here, pointing fingers at Yiqing Luo's profound grade. Instead, they should reflect on themselves. profound grade, powerful ability, so what? Unable to use their own strength. To use their own strength. To do something that they thought was meaningful. What was the use of such power? They couldn't refute. They were indeed trash. After Yiqing Luo opened her eyes, she heard Dmo Xian defending her, and Zomo's words. She didn't have any special feelings. To her, those people were just strangers. She didn't care about their thoughts. Following her breathing, she adjusted the profound qi that was still surging wildly in her profound jade heart. There was also the dark force that was continuously circulating in his body for a few days. She didn't expect. He had actually broken through in one fell swoop at this critical juncture. Just now, the white dat that was swimming around in his mind, the white dat that was more naughty than a mantis shrimp, was the opportunity to break through. After she grabbed hold of that opportunity, she felt the change in her own body's aura. Finally broke through. Since the last time when she contracted with Black Tortoise, Dmo Xian had suppressed her advancement and breakthrough power. She had never come across this opportunity. It was all thanks to this array. It made her breakthrough extremely smooth. She closed her eyes and clenched her fingers. The profound qi that overflowed from her fingertips vibrated. Her heart was calm. Her mind slowly returned to peace. Profound qi was still surging in her profound jade heart circulation, and her limbs and bones. Just at this moment, among the crowd below, someone suddenly exclaimed, "Look! Madame D is about to advance again. Her aura is starting to fluctuate again." These words caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. All of them turned their gazes towards Yiqing Luo in unison. As expected, he saw Yiqing Luo standing beside the withered tree, her eyes slightly closed. A ball of demonic red profound light enveloped her entire body. Boom! The air vibrated. The air rippled. F*CK. Sage Profound Second Grade. No. He's at the third level of the Sage Profound Realm. F*CK. Fourth rank 4 When everyone sensed the change in Yiqing Luo's surrounding aura, he was completely dumbfounded. This was even more shocking than knowing that Yiqing Luo had just stepped into the Sage Profound stage. They could hardly believe their eyes. When was it really that easy to advance from the Sage Profound realm to the minor realm, crossing 3 or 4 ranks in a matter of minutes? They weren't practicing the same mystic class system, were they? It took them 8 to 10 years to advance a grade. This young girl in front of him, swish swish swish. Chapter 38-31. Looking at the entire Earth realm, or even the upper realm, to be able to break through 3 or 4 grades consecutively at this age, and at this profound grade, there was only Yiqing Luo alone. Everyone's hearts were on the verge of collapsing. Where the hell did this pervert come from? Just based on Sky Profound 9th grade profound grade, she contracted 4 sacred beasts and a mutated mirage beast. And she had the ability to go against Lord Yu. Not only did she break through when she was breaking the array, she even broke several grades consecutively. Not only did she break through, she even broke through several grades consecutively. Everyone stared at Yiqing Luo's devastatingly beautiful face, but her features were obviously young and tender. They felt that their hearts were about to explode. Comparing oneself to others was infuriating. They no longer dared to use their dog eyes to look down on others. Finally, Yiqing Luo finally stopped steadily at the Sage Profound 4th grade's aura. The surging profound energy in her body finally stopped. This time, Yiqing Luo was certain. She had really advanced completely. After the advancement, Yiqing Luo felt a warm current of profound energy, slowly dispersing her earlier fatigue. Even the air seemed to have become purer and cleaner. She could even clearly sense the surrounding heaven and earth's spiritual qi. Finally, she took another step forward. She finally was one step closer to Xian. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards. When her long and narrow eyes opened, she looked at him. The corner of her eyes overflowed with a coquettish glow, as though a captivating poppy flower was hooked at the corner of the young lady's eyes. She slowly turned around, her back facing the crowd. Then she raised her hand. Everyone only had time to see clearly that pair of slender fair wrists flashed past. Immediately after, A powerful and terrifying force slashed towards the withered tree. At the same time, outside the formation, a majestic and tyrannical energy suddenly rose. Kacha! The dead tree broke into pieces. As of this moment, the collapsing, swaying auction suddenly stopped. The sky full of dark clouds also dispersed at this moment, revealing the light on the horizon. Various powerhouses cultivators were like withered trees coming back to life, fish on the verge of death, seeing water. Their faces revealed an expression of escaping death. The light shone on every corner of the auction. It also presented the entire ruins in front of the citizens of the land domain. At the moment when the formation was broken, Yang Kai's eyes lit up. The young girl was pressed into the man's arms. She could smell the elegant sandalwood scent of a man. It was reassuring. She curled her pink lips and wrapped her arms around the man's waist. Xian, I did it. You know how it feels to be worried about me. Yet you're willing to let me worry about you like this. Xian's arms tightened as he felt the soft body of the person in his arms, and smelled the delicate fragrance of the person in his arms. His restless heart. Only then did he seem to have come back to life. Yi Qingluo raised her head, her eyes curved as she smiled and said, "This is my fault, so tonight, I will obediently atone for my own mistake." His voice fell. She lowered her voice and smiled faintly. "Are you satisfied with this?" Xian's arms tightened again. Then he pulled her away. He lowered his head and looked at her with a burning gaze. "Are you serious?" Yi Qingluo's eyes were still curved as she smiled and nodded. "I'm serious." His eyes deepened. He lowered his head and rested his chin on her shoulder. By the side of her ear was the man's deep and husky voice. "I've remembered it. This is what you said yourself." Yi Qingluo smiled as she hugged the man's back, just as this sweet atmosphere surrounded them. Chapter 38-32. Yi Qingluo's eyes suddenly lit up as she popped her head out from the man's arms. Outside the ruins, dust billowed as a slender figure slowly walked over. A lady dressed in a sea blue long dress entered Yi Qingluo's sight. Her looks were stunning and cold to the extreme. Like a winter plum blossom on an iceberg, proud and aloof. When the woman's beautiful eyes, which were overflowing with a faint blue light, met his eyes, his heart trembled. Yi Qingluo had already pushed Xian away and pounced towards the lady. "Little Qingwu." That's right. The lady in front of her was Jun Qingwu, who went to the upper realm to investigate the person behind the secluded palace. Ever since she left Nirvana realm, she and Jun Qingwu had never met each other again. It turned out that the person who attacked the arrays was the helper that Xian mentioned. It was Jun Qingwu. Yi Qingluo pounced forward and hugged the lady. The lady's cold face revealed a tinge of red, as though she wasn't used to being so close to someone. But looking at Yi Qingluo's joyous expression, the lady still didn't push Yi Qingluo away, but raised her hand and gently hugged her back. This response made Yi Qingluo very surprised. One must know that her little Qingwu was so cold and arrogant. She would never show any enthusiasm on the surface. To be able to hug her back, she had already given her enough face. The smile on Yi Qingluo's face bloomed even more brilliantly. "How did you know I was here? Did Xian tell you?" Yi Qingluo asked with a smile. Jun Qingwu nodded. "The overlord informed me to rush over, but he didn't have time to tell me anything. By the time I rushed over, he had already entered the array." Yi Qingluo lowered her head as she gave an embarrassed smile. Xian must have been overly worried about her. Hence he couldn't wait any longer, and rushed into the array to look for her after informing Jun Qingwu. "Then, how did you know I was going to break the array? And you accurately found the array's eye and coordinated so well?" Earlier when she destroyed the array's eye, if it wasn't for the external force which allowed her to see the blind spot of the array's eye and drip her blood into that blind spot, they were probably still trapped in the auction. Moreover, she did not have enough opportunities to seize the opportunity to successfully break through. Jun Qingwu looked behind her and said, "It's all thanks to your friend's timely arrival. Her battle pet provided me with an accurate solution." "My friend?" Yi Qingluo was slightly stunned when she heard that. He heard the word battle pet again. Yi Qingluo subconsciously looked to the side, at Qiao Yinyan, who was hugging Qiao Qiao. a battle pet that came to help. It seemed that it was only this mutant beast of the Shadow Clan. Long time no see. Qing Luo can't even see my existence. The familiar tone, the familiar pause between each word, like a robot, emotionless and flat, rang in his ears. Yi Qing Luo looked over Jun Qingwu's shoulder. Not far away, he saw a petite girl dressed in a pink dumpling outfit. She looked very much like a little girl who had mistakenly entered a battlefield. Yi Qing Luo's eyes widened in joy. Shadow. Wasn't that person Mo Yuing? Who would have thought that she would actually come? Mo Yuing took small steps as she walked over. Then she raised her hands and tilted her head stiffly. Her empty and soulless eyes looked at Yi Qing Luo as she spat out a word. Hug. Yi Qing Luo was melted by her cuteness. She immediately stretched out her arms and hugged Mo Yuing. Chapter 38-33. Mo Yuing learnt from Yi Qing Luo and hugged her back. Her tone was stiff as she replied word by word. Worried about you. Meeting an old friend. Yi Qing Luo's brows were filled with smiles. She hugged Mo Yuing tighter. Thank you, Shadow. Mo Yuing stiffly nestled in Yi Qing Luo's arms, expressionless. But Yi Qing Luo knew that little Shadow was shy. She let go of Mo Yuing. Mo Yuing immediately grabbed her little hand. Jun Qingwu said to Yi Qing Luo. The people who came are not only the both of us, there are also those people over there. We might need to trouble you to head over there to investigate. As the two of them walked out of the auction, Yi Qing Luo then realized. Outside the auction, there were not only crowds of onlookers. There were also rows of neatly organized troops dressed in silver armor. The leader was someone whom Yi Qing Luo had met several times. The keeper of the balance historian. The historian of balance was here too? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows and exchanged glances with the historiographer. The official then walked over. Miss Yi, long time no see. He greeted them with a forced smile on his upright and plain-spoken face. His heart was broken. Every time something big happened, Yi Qing Luo would always be there. Every time he saw her, nothing good would happen. But, seeing Dmo Xian by the side, coupled with the current situation, the librarian suppressed the collapse in his heart as he smiled at Yi Qing Luo. However, Yi Qing Luo had no intention to appreciate it. She crossed her arms in front of her chest, and the corners of her mouth curled up. She said in a mocking tone. As expected, every time something is over, the librarian lord will come over to clean up the mess. Being rebutted by Yi Qing Luo, the librarian's expression turned awkward. If someone hadn't reported it to the historian of balance, he didn't want to deal with this matter. What did he mean by they would only clean up after everything was over? Wasn't this just another way of saying that they were here to claim credit? Many of the court historians had dark expressions on their faces when they heard those words. Yi Qing Luo seemed as though she didn't notice it. Or perhaps he sensed it but did not care about their emotions. Her expression was very calm as she lifted her eyelids. What do you want to ask? Hurry up and ask. The scribe suppressed the anger in his heart. There were so many citizens and profound practitioners from various forces watching. This matter would definitely become countless versions and be publicized. He took a look at Dmo Xian, restraining the sharpness in his eyes as he patiently replied. Miss Ye's words have really wronged us. He didn't give Yi Qing Luo a chance to open her mouth as he continued. This time's matter in the Earth Realm, we didn't sense any fluctuations or presence from the Earth Realm, so I think it should be isolated by this array. I had received a report from Miss June, and immediately rushed over with my men. As he spoke, he looked at Jun Qingwu. Miss June can testify that when we rushed over, we were also stopped outside the array. Jun Qingwu furrowed her brows and looked into the eyes of the librarian. Finally, she nodded her head. Yi Qing Luo scoffed lightly. Are you trying to prove your incompetence? To the historian of balance, Yi Qing Luo really couldn't muster up any good impression. Every time something happened, the historian of balance rushed over, but he could not completely solve the problem. He even handed over the dark forces to the historian of balance, and brought them back to the heavenly Tao to be imprisoned. A bunch of historian of balance were still able to let the dark forces people escape. and even made the dark forces people join the Palace of Darkness. After the Palace of Darkness almost destroyed Nirvana realm. They even used some prophecy as an excuse. Now they had reached the Earth realm. Chapter 38-34. The librarian's brows creased as he looked at Yi Qingluo with a chilly gaze. Qingluo, you've just experienced a huge battle and need to rest. Jun Qingwu interrupted the turbulent undercurrent between the two of them. She looked at the historiographer and said coldly, "Historiographer, if you have any questions, please ask them as soon as possible. They are all very tired." Jun Qingwu intervened, because she didn't want her to become enemies with the court official. Yi Qingluo wouldn't not give Jun Qingwu face. She softened her expression and glanced at the librarian indifferently. This was planned by the Palace of Tenebrous Darkness. Their goal was to seal all the elite profound practitioners in the Earth realm here, and cause unrest in the Earth realm. As for their purpose, the Keeper of Records should be clear about it. Hearing Yi Qingluo's words, the face of the historiographer turned cold and serious. His ice-cold eyes flickered with a dignified and cold light. After a while he said in a tense voice, "I understand." Yi Qingluo pointed to the ruins of the auction. There's someone who had been drained of blood inside, rumored to be the son of the mastermind behind the Palace of Darkness. Perhaps we might be able to get some information from him. The historiographer's gaze flickered. Immediately, there were historians who flew towards the direction which Yi Qingluo pointed at. Dmo Xian had already walked over from behind, his long arm directly hooked onto Yi Qingluo, as his tone was calm and apathetic as he spoke to the librarian. As for other matters, go and ask those people, Lil Luo is already very tired. The scribe immediately lowered his head. Yes. Yi Qingluo couldn't help but laugh. She might as well just directly leaned into Dmo Xian's embrace. This feeling of bullying others wasn't bad at all. She was indeed quite tired. The moment Dmo Xian came over, Mo Yuing was squeezed to one side. Mo Yuing looked at her empty hand, and looked at Dmo Xian who was carrying Yi Qingluo. He tilted his head and thought for a moment. It was as if he was thinking about his chances of snatching the man from the hands of a venerable sovereign. In the end he put his hand down. The chances of snatching him away were zero, so he was too lazy to make such a fearless choice. Mo Yuing was preparing to follow behind Dmo Xian and Yi Qingluo. Suddenly, she felt a burning gaze that was tightly glued to her body. This feeling, he had sensed it ever since he broke the formation. But all her heart was on Yi Qingluo, so she didn't pay too much attention to it. At this moment, the feeling of that gaze was even more intense. It was so strong that she couldn't help but pay attention to where this gaze was coming from. Mo Yuing didn't like this feeling. She stopped in her tracks and looked in the direction of his gaze. His line of sight stopped at a tall and handsome silver-haired man. The man's eyes were fixated on her without blinking. His gaze was deep and complicated. It was an emotion that she could not understand and was too lazy to understand. Mo Yuying's line of sight was fixed on the man's embrace. She stiffly raised her hands and stretched them out in the man's direction. The man's body suddenly stiffened, and there seemed to be a storm surging in his eyes. Even Pei Sheng, who was slow to react, was stunned. At this moment, all of them could feel the chilling aura emanating from their brothers. He was so close that he could clearly see the way his brother looked at the little girl. "Brother, are you really not afraid of scaring the girl away?" Pei Sheng was shivering at the side. The man holding the mutant beast suddenly moved. Qiao Yinyan stood up. His gaze was complicated as he stared deeply at Mo Yuing. After that, step by step, he walked towards Mo Yuing. Every step he took, the expression on his face became even more complicated. Chapter 38-35. Such an oppressive pressure. This caused Mo Yuing's expressionless face to stiffen into a frown. Her empty gaze swept across the man's face. He looked at the flowing silver hair swaying in front of his eyes as he walked. He suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. His eyes felt a little painful. Such a feeling. Mo Yuing hadn't felt it for a long time. He didn't like this feeling either. Her hollow eyes stared at the man's chest, her arms shaking up and down stiffly. Her voice was stiff and emotionless like a repeater. Qiu, come here. Master. Qiu, who was struggling in Xiao Yinyan's arms, howled. Its forelimbs struggled out of Xiao Yinyan's arms and pounced towards Mo Yuing. Mo Yuing hugged Qiu. Then he stiffly hugged her in his arms, turned around and left. Xiao Yinyan's footsteps immediately came to a halt. His dark eyes, which were filled with huge waves, stared at Mo Yuing's back view. The cold qi around his body became even more intense, almost freezing the surrounding air into ice. His whole body tensed up. He clenched his fists tightly. He seemed to be very angry. Even Peixing didn't dare to approach him. Yiqing Luo naturally felt the change in the atmosphere. While Mo Yuing was looking for Qiu, she stopped and waited for Mo Yuing. Then she saw Xiao Yinyan's terrifying gaze as he looked at Mo Yuing. Rather, it was terrifying. However, that gaze wasn't filled with hatred or anything like that. Instead, it was the kind of gaze that was so complicated that no one could tell what kind of emotion it was. He could only see that. A whirlpool and a storm gathered in Xiao Yinyan's eyes. Why did Xiao Yinyan look at Mo Yuing like that? Especially, just now, when Mo Yuing stretched out her hands towards Qiu's expression changed. The aura around Xiao Yinyan grew even stronger. The whirlpool spun and the storm raged. But amidst all these fierce and complicated emotions, there was also a kind of, it was very, very complicated, helplessness, compromise. After Mo Yuing carried Qiu away, Xiao Yinyan was like a wild beast that had gone berserk. This is Yiqing Luo suddenly recalled what Guiwu had said earlier. There was always someone in Xiao Yinyan's heart. There had always been a woman. Then, Xiao Yinyan didn't seem to want to talk about that woman. And the way Xiao Yinyan looked at Mo Yuing, and his attitude. Could it be? The person in Xiao Yinyan's heart was Mo Yuing? No way. Yiqing Luo was struck by this heavenly thunder rumbling thought of hers until she was burnt on the outside and tender on the inside. Mo Yuing's attitude towards Xiao Yinyan. It seemed like she didn't know Xiao Yinyan. Yiqing Luo expressed that her gossipy heart was stirring. When Mo Yuing walked over with Qiu, she asked, Shadow, do you know Xiao Yinyan? No. Mo Yuing raised her head and asked blankly. Yiqing Luo lifted her chin towards Xiao Yinyan's direction. The person who has been watching you. I don't know him. Mo Yuing answered very straightforwardly. I don't like his eyes. Yiqing Luo. If Xiao Yinyan heard these words, it would really be a stab to his heart. She glanced at Xiao Yinyan before shifting her gaze back to Mo Yuing. She rubbed her chin and said, But I feel that he seems to know you. Mo Yuing tilted her head as her expressionless stiff face revealed a troubled expression for the first time. But I don't know him. Yiqing Luo felt that she had to ask Xiao Yinyan why he kept staring at Mo Yuing. She was just about to call Xiao Yinyan over. Chapter 38-36. Mo Yuing. These three words were filled with hostility. However, it was also mixed with another indescribable meaning. Moreover, Xiao Yinyan's expression was so complicated that it was hard to understand. How did he know your name? Yiqing Luo pointed at Xiao Yinyan. Her heart was even more certain of her previous guess. Mo Yuing shook her head stiffly. I don't know. Yiqing Luo clicked her tongue as she narrated the drama that she had imagined. The way he looked at you made me feel that. There was once a touching relationship between the two of you. Then you heartless woman abandoned him. Mo Yuing was expressionless as she blinked her empty eyes. No. Yiqing Luo knew that Mo Yuing would not lie, nor would she lie because of such a matter. She could tell that Mo Yuing really didn't know Xiao Yinyan. And she didn't have a good impression of Xiao Yinyan. Could it be? Xiao Yinyan recognized the wrong person? Yiqing Luo felt that the possibility was very high. Why? After becoming Godless Island's island sage, you don't even dare to greet me? Xiao Yinyan's cold eyes stared at Mo Yuing without blinking. His tone was filled with ridicule. Yiqing Luo suddenly felt. This was really a big show. He even knew that Mo Yuing was Godless Island's island sage. It looked like there was really some unspeakable secret between Xiao Yinyan and Mo Yuing. And from Xiao Yinyan's tone, it was filled with ridicule, but even more so, self-deprecation. Yiqing Luo expressed. The secret between the two was very complicated. After hearing Qiao Yinyan's words, Mo Yuing finally reacted. She slowly turned her head back, her empty eyes fixed on Qiao Yinyan. After a long time she asked, "Who are you?" She stared at him for so long. She was sizing up Qiao Yinyan's face. But in her memory, Mo Yuing didn't think that she knew him. When Mo Yuing asked this question, Qiao Yinyan's face instantly turned pale. His dark pupils were filled with whirlpools as he stared at Mo Yuing. His eyes were filled with pain and anger. "What a good who are you, ha ha. You actually asked me. Who am I?" Qiao Yinyan couldn't help laughing. But that laughter was filled with pain. Mo Yuing lifted her feet and walked towards him. Step by step, she walked up to Qiao Yinyan and came to a stop. She didn't even reach Qiao Yinyan's shoulder when she stood in front of him. As Mo Yuing got closer, Qiao Yinyan's aura was constantly changing. Raging waves of qi waves, wave after wave equals fierce surging. But just as Mo Yuing neared, all the storms calmed down. Mo Yuing raised her head to look at him. The expressionless, empty eyes rolled around and blinked. Then, with a serious tone, he said, "I'm sorry, I really don't know who you are. If I accidentally forgot about you, I apologize in advance." Then he asked again, "How do you know me? You even know my identity?" The smile on Qiao Yinyan's face gradually froze. He stared at Mo Yuing. Keep staring. Especially when he saw Mo Yuing's pair of beautiful eyes that were so dark that they were so deep that they were devoid of any emotion. His expression finally changed a little. "You." Qiao Yinyan frowned and looked at Mo Yuing suspiciously. Chapter 38-37. His voice paused slightly as he stared at Mo Yuing and said word by word, "Do you really think that just because you are a puppet, I will forgive you?" Mo Yuing's pupils widened slightly. There seemed to be a flash of light in her extremely dark pupils. Her silvery hair swayed in front of her eyes. That heart-wrenching pain assaulted him again. Mo Yuing was unfamiliar with this kind of feeling. She slowly raised her hand and pressed it on her chest. Her lifeless eyes flickered slightly. Her long eyelashes were also fluttering. Was it heartache? Was this the feeling of heartache? She was also a person with a heart? Mo Yuing fell into her own thoughts. His eyes were wide open, and there was an extreme darkness in them. So dark that the bottom couldn't be seen. This made Qiao Yinyan felt as if he had punched into cotton. Like, all the anger only belonged to him alone. The girl in front of him had no reaction at all. This realization made Qiao Yinyan's arms drop to his sides in disappointment. He forcefully shut his eyes. He staggered back a few steps. A self-deprecating chuckle came out from his mouth. Then he turned around and walked weakly in another direction with weak steps. His back view looked extremely lonely, as if he had lost all his vitality. Was his heart dead? Yi Qingluo's slender brows knitted even tighter. She took a look at Mo Yuing. Seeing Mo Yuing still standing at the same spot, pressing her chest, not knowing what she was thinking, not moving at all, like a puppet. Yi Qingluo sighed. Others didn't know what Mo Yuing's situation was. As a brother, how could she not know that Mo Yuing had fallen into her own world at this moment? Looking at Qiao Yinyan's lonely and dejected back view, Yi Qingluo finally called out, "Yinyan, wait." The moment she opened her mouth, Qiao Yinyan stopped in his tracks. Even Mo Yuing, who had fallen into her own world, also raised her head. Tilting her head slightly, she stared at Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo walked directly to Mo Yuing's side and held her hand. She sighed and said, "I don't know if you've mistaken me for someone else, or if you've misunderstood something. Ever since I met the shadow, she has been like this. There's no such thing as playing dumb or puppet that you think she is." Qiao Yinyan's back stiffened. Following that, he turned around abruptly as his dark pupils stared deadly at Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo didn't evade as her eyes congealed and seriously met his gaze. After a long while, Qiao Yinyan's eyes gradually dimmed. His thin lips moved, and his voice was a little hoarse. Why is she like this?" "I don't know." Yi Qingluo shook her head. "Ever since I met her, she has been like this." Qiao Yinyan's gaze slowly shifted back to Mo Yuing. He looked at Mo Yuing's expressionless face. Those empty, soulless eyes. And the stiff and completely unnatural way he tilted his head. His heart was in a mess, to tell the truth, when Yiqing Luo started to explain. His heart had already started to believe a little. From the moment he met Mo Yuing, he had sensed her strangeness and unnaturalness. But the hatred and resentment he had towards her made him neglect all these. The current Mo Yuing, but the her in his memory, was indeed very different. The atmosphere gradually turned heavy. No one opened their mouths. After a long while. Chapter 38:38. Everyone had more or less injuries on them. If they stayed any longer, their lives might be in danger. Yiqing Luo took a deep look at Xiao Yinyan and held Mo Yuying's little hand as she returned to Mo Xian's side. The group of them were just about to leave. A scribe hurried over and whispered something in the ear of the scribe. The historian's face sunk instantly. He raised his hand and stopped the group of people who were about to leave. Miss Yi, the person you mentioned earlier. The son of the mastermind behind the secluded palace, we didn't see him. The historian asked solemnly. Think carefully, have you remembered the wrong direction? When Pei Sheng heard this, he became unhappy. The last array, it was because that person called Lord Yu used his blood to activate the array, causing the auction to become like this. There are so many pairs of eyes watching him being sucked dry. How could we remember the wrong direction? The historian's stern gaze looked at Pei Sheng. But we indeed didn't find the person you mentioned. How could that be possible? Pei Sheng wanted to say something, but Yiqing Luo raised her hand, blocking his words. Yiqing Luo frowned as she looked at the historian with a grave expression. You said you didn't find Lord Yu's corpse? Earlier when the array was broken. Because of her profound grade breakthrough, as well as seeing her old friend, she didn't pay much attention to Lord Yu. Lord Yu's corpse disappeared? Or perhaps Lord Yu actually wasn't dead. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold as she suppressed her voice. If Lord Yu has disappeared, someone must have saved him. His injuries are too serious. He definitely can't leave alone. When the historian heard that, he took a look at the historian behind him. Chase. Yiqing Luo completely left the matters of the auction to the historians to investigate and settle. She followed Jun Qinggu and originally wanted to return to the Treasures Exchange Hall to stay. But following that, Qiao family's patriarch rushed over and politely welcomed the group of people to Qiao family's residence. Yiqing Luo looked at Qiao family's patriarch Qiao, whose head was lowered and his silver hair covered half of his face, but she didn't reject patriarch Qiao's good intentions. She was also very curious. What was going on between Xiao Yinyan and Mo Yuing? The group of people arrived at the Qiao family mansion. Patriarch Qiao arranged a good guest room for them and said, "Have a good rest, everyone." Then he left the room sensibly. The great battle in the auction. The people outside didn't know, but looking at the auction that had been reduced to ruins, and at least 2/3 of the elite profound practitioners had died, he knew how dangerous the battle was. At this moment, letting them rest was the best choice. Patriarch Qiao had obviously treated Yiqing Luo and Mo Xian as a married couple as he arranged a room for them. After the two of them walked into the guest room, they smelled a faint medicinal fragrance in the air. On the wooden table in the room, there were all kinds of medicine. Moreover, the medicine was of the highest quality. Some were used to treat external injuries, some were used to treat internal injuries, and some were used to replenish physical strength. This patriarch Qiao has indeed arranged it appropriately. Yiqing Luo picked up a bottle of medicine and shook it in her fingertips. Behind him, however, was a scalding hot body. The man's low and hoarse voice floated down from above. These are not important. The important thing is, Lil Luo should fulfill his promise. The man lowered his head slightly. His chin rested on the young lady's fair neck. Warm air sprayed out, making Yiqing Luo's neck to emerge with little goosebumps. Chapter 38:39. Yiqing Luo placed one hand on the back of the man's hand and gently pulled it apart. With the space to move, Yiqing Luo turned around in his arms and faced the man. She raised her head and met with the man's dark obsidian eyes. Deep in his eyes, There was a hint of affection. Just a glance. Yi Qingluo felt her legs go soft. This man's charm. It really made her unable to control herself at all times. Yi Qingluo's curly long eyelashes fluttered as she suppressed the surging, evil thoughts towards Diemo Xian in her heart. Her tender lips curled into a shallow arc as she smiled sweetly at him. Diemo Xian's pupils reflected the young lady's face, which was as beautiful as a flower. His eyes dimmed again. Immediately he exerted force and brought her delicate body into his arms. Then his feet moved. He pressed the young lady's butt against the wooden table. And he lowered his body, one hand hooked Yi Qingluo's waist, the other hand supported on the table. The distance between the two was very close. His breath sprayed. His magnetic and gentle voice was like a soul-stirring tune, very pleasant to listen to. Looks like you have already thought of how to atone for your sins. Yi Qingluo looked at the handsome face in front of her. That pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes, slightly met, like a whirlpool, even the soul seemed to be sucked in, sinking into it. Previously, after breaking the auction's array, she did say personally that she wanted to atone for her rash actions, which made him worried. She didn't deny this point. So the young lady smiled faintly as she raised her head. Her hands automatically circled around the man's neck, smiling exceptionally sweetly. So my dear Xian, are you ready to enjoy my atonement? Her two hands circled around the man. Almost all the strength of her upper body hung on the man's body. The man's body slightly leaned forward. A few strands of black hair fell, falling on Yi Qingluo's face. That peerless, breathtakingly handsome face came closer by a few degrees. And because of this, Yi Qingluo could clearly see, after she finished that sentence, Diemo Xian's pair of shimmering eyes slightly contracted. Yi Qingluo smiled. There was a hint of velvet in his eyes. The corners of her eyes arched upwards, becoming increasingly flirtatious. Yi Qingluo raised her hand slightly and pressed it on Diemo Xian's chest. It was tight and pushed with a little force. She pushed his body a distance away from her. She slid her hands down to the man's shoulders. When doing these movements, her eyes met his from the beginning to the end. Her smile widened. His feet moved. In an instant, the two of them had moved to the side of the bed in the inner room. Diemo Xian shot a glance at the bed behind him, and the smile on his thin lips deepened. Lil Luo is really sincere this time. In order to redeem himself as soon as possible, he even used the secret teleportation technique. Yi Qingluo only laughed. Her long and narrow eyes were overflowing with light, which made her even more enchanting and flirtatious. Diemo Xian's vision fell onto the young lady's fair skin, as smooth as silk, as his gaze turned darker and his voice became hoarse. If those people outside knew that you used the secret teleportation technique in this way, I'm afraid they would shout that it's a waste of God's gift. The secret teleportation technique is mine. How I want to use it, what has it got to do with them? Yi Qingluo's brows rose, as she suddenly exerted force, pressing the man onto the bed. Her silky black hair was scattered on the bed. After the black hair scattered. Chapter 3840. After Diemo Xian fell, Yi Qingluo's hand was pressed on his chest. She leaned down and gave a mischievous and complacent smile, just like, "You're my man, how I want to sleep with you is my business." The young lady's words were like a feather, scratching Diemo Xian's heart. His eyes were overflowing with joy. His gaze towards Yi Qingluo was even more tender. He was smiling. His smile was magnificent. Yi Qingluo felt that she was about to drown in the man's pampering eyes. She hurriedly retracted her gaze and adjusted her emotions. This man belonged to her. How she wanted to sleep, whenever she wanted to sleep, she could. This person belonged to her. So don't wallow in his beauty. Anyway, he belonged to her. Yi Qingluo brainwashed herself in her heart, just in case she really couldn't control herself, and directly pounced on Diemo Xian. She stretched out her hand and tugged at Diemo Xian's belt. The man quickly grasped her hand with his large, broad palm. Yi Qingluo raised her head and looked at him. Diemo Xian's gaze was deep as he held her palm, giving off a scorching heat. Lil Luo is so proactive, it makes me very surprised. There's someone more proactive at the back. Let go, lie down and enjoy obediently. Yi Qingluo swung her hand, indicating him to let go. The man didn't let go. Yi Qingluo simply used the other hand to tug at the man's belt again. Diemo Xian's eyes flashed past a sliver of helplessness. That gaze, which was mixed with adoration, fixed on the young lady for a few breaths. Eventually he let go of the hand which was holding her. He allowed the young lady to take two-pronged actions, touching him from top to bottom. The man's robe looked simple, but in fact it was very complicated. There were a lot of buckles inside. The young lady was tugging, and as she lost her patience, she directly pulled open the man's collar. With this tug, the buckles immediately fell off. The man's skin and that smooth muscle lines were magnified in Yi Qingluo's eyes. But what attracted Yi Qingluo's gaze was not the man's strong and seductive body, but on the man's shoulder. That patch of greenish-black. And there was a trace of 5 fingers. It was as if it was deeply embedded in his flesh. Yi Qingluo's pupils contracted as she leaned closer to him. She lifted her soft fingers and placed them on the greenish-black palm print. Her throat was a little dry. "Does it hurt?" "It doesn't hurt." Diemo Xian smiled as he shook his head, as he raised his hand and caught her fingers, covering her little hand in his wide and thick palm. He held her hand, brought it to his lips, and kissed it gently. "This injury is nothing. What I'm looking forward to is you taking the initiative to atone for your sins." Yi Qingluo's eyelashes fluttered as her gaze was still fixated on the greenish-black finger mark on his shoulder. The shy expression on her face was different from before. Instead, there was a faint look of worry. Diemo Xian was about to open his mouth. The little hand that was held in his palm suddenly retracted. Then he saw the girl jump down from the bed and rush into the outer hall. "Lil Luor." Diemo Xian was just about to get up. The girl's figure hurriedly rushed over. In her hands, there were a lot of medicine bottles. She placed the medicine bottles by Diemo Xian's side, and then pressed him down on the bed. "Lil Luor." Diemo Xian took a look at those medicines and looked at Yi Qingluo's preparation actions, and knew what she was planning. Yi Qingluo raised her eyelids and took a look at him. "Don't you want me to take the initiative to atone for my sins? Then lie down properly." Chapter 38-41. But the atonement I promised you is to apply the medicine for you personally. Yi Qingluo replied decisively, her brows arched. "Do you feel that I'm very sincere? Do you feel extremely touched?" Diemo Xian's thin lips curled up into an arc, which made him look noble and elegant. "You know very well what I want." He continued to stare at her. His gaze was burning, the meaning was clear. Yi Qingluo suddenly pressed her body towards his direction. Diemo Xian's hand, which was holding her, loosened slightly. The young lady had already pushed his hand down, pressing it on the bed. Following that, a warm and soft fingertip pressed on the greenish-black palm print on his shoulder. The cold medicinal powder was sprinkled down. Diemo Xian's shoulder trembled slightly. He lifted his eyes and saw the young lady's flawless face at a close distance. That thick and long eyelashes projected down her eyelids, but it still couldn't cover the young lady's sparkling eyes. He didn't move. He allowed the young lady to apply the medicine for him. Yi Qingluo's actions were very fast. She bandaged Diemo Xian in a few moments. She had just put down the bandage in her hand. Her wrist was held by Diemo Xian. She looked towards Diemo Xian. Diemo Xian smiled. "Bandage done then. What's next?" Yi Qingluo looked at the big palm which held her wrist, and then looked at his shoulder. There was no shyness on her face, instead there was some mischievousness. Looking at her expression, Diemo Xian vaguely sensed that something was wrong. He heard the young lady said with a smile, "Looks like Xian still understands me very well, knowing to take the initiative to request. Then I won't stand on ceremony." Saying that, her hands had already landed on his open robe, gently tugging. The originally loose robe was slid to the two sides. Yi Qingluo lifted both his arms out of his sleeves. Diemo Xian's upper body was completely exposed. Every inch of lines, every inch of muscles, was reflected in Yi Qingluo's eyes. Yi Qingluo swept a glance up and down. After confirming that Diemo Xian's body only had that injury on his shoulder, she then felt relieved. Then she picked up Diemo Xian's robe and threw it on his body, covering up that part of his muscular body which was tempting her to commit. Diemo propped himself up and wrapped an arm around her waist. His chest, which was only separated by a piece of robe, was very close to her delicate body. That's it. He lifted his lower lip, and his voice was filled with laughter. Feeling the heat coming from the man, Yiqing Luo wanted to struggle. Seems like I've stirred up some fire? When he saw the person in his arms, his body stiffened. Diemo couldn't help but curled his lips upwards as his smile deepened. The little fellow was so mischievous. She even dared to tease him. If he didn't teach her a lesson, perhaps the little fellow would have to play the same trick again in the future. Play once, this is called fun. If he played it more often, he did not think that he could maintain his self-control in front of her. Thinking like this, the man's eyes darkened. He suddenly flipped over. Yiqing Luo only felt that the world was spinning and her back was pressed against the soft mattress. And above, the man's warm breath was spraying down. Her and Diemo position had been switched. She blinked her eyes as a layer of crimson finally surfaced on her cheeks. Her little hands lifted up and pressed against the man's chest. But because of Diemo sudden action, the robe that covered his body had long fallen to the side. Yiqing Luo's hand fell on the man's firm skin. The strong and firm touch brought with it a scalding heat. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but withdrew her hand. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Chapter 38-42. This posture was very dangerous. The heat from the man's body said it all. Yiqing Luo tried her best to show an innocent look as she blinked her eyes. She only cared about flirting with men. But she had forgotten that this man in front of her, on the surface, looked like a large puppy. But at some point, he would transform into a wolf dog. The moment he touched her, something happened. Diemo eyes, which were as deep as a serene lake, looked deeply into Yiqing Luo's eyes. Looking at Yiqing Luo's widened and innocent expression, the corners of his mouth rose unconsciously. His body leaned down a little more. The scorching breath drew closer to the young girl. It was so close that the girl's pupils dilated slightly. Lil Luo. Or has it been too long since I've used my actions to tell you not to provoke him easily? He chuckled softly. His voice was a little hoarse, and it was very pleasant to hear. His faint magnetism tugged at her heartstrings. Yiqing Luo felt that her heart was almost out of control. Following the man's large palm, he followed the lines of her delicate body, moving up bit by bit. Yiqing Luo's body tensed up even more. The place where his large palm brushed, it trembled slightly. It was like a stream of fire igniting her body and mind. His kiss fell on her. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she closed her eyes. But he closed his eyes and remained silent for a long time. There was no man's warm and soft touch on her lips. On the contrary, the ball of warmth on her body also turned over and landed next to her. Yiqing Luo was stunned and slightly dazed. The eyes moved and opened. Diemo eyes were filled with smiles and the corners of his lips were curled into a teasing arc. That ridiculing smile made Yiqing Luo's cheeks flushed red. Yu. Was she being flirted with? With a hook of his long arm, he pulled her into his embrace. He laughed softly. I know you're tired. Have a good rest. After a few consecutive battles, in a moment of desperation, he unleashed a power that exceeded what his body could withstand. Then he broke through again. Anyone would feel physically and mentally exhausted. How could Diemo possibly request Yiqing Luo to satisfy him at this moment? No, he was simply hugging her. They hugged each other and slept together. His heart was already satisfied. Feel the man's scorching love, and for her concern. Yiqing Luo's brows were tainted with a gentle glow. She buried her head in his chest and put one hand on his waist. Just as he closed his eyes, his heart filled with happiness. Diemo magnetic and mellow voice rang in her ears. When I'm well rested, I'll be waiting for your atonement. Yiqing Luo. Feeling the girl in his arms stiffen, he smiled and said, Don't forget what I said before. If you start a fire, you have to be responsible for extinguishing it. Yiqing Luo. Could this joke ever get over it? His body and mind were indeed exhausted. This rest. He rested until the next morning. By the time Yiqing Luo opened her eyes, The man was no longer by her side. He reached out to touch the side of his body. It was cold, which meant that he had been awake for a long time. She sat up straight and saw the bandage hanging on the side. It seemed that Dmo Xian had changed the medicine himself. She rubbed her face. Only by Dmo Xian's side. She slept like a log. She didn't even notice that Dmo Xian had woken up and left. Yiqing Luo got up and changed into a new set of clothes from the profound phoenix ring. After washing up, she walked out of the room that Patriarch Qiao had arranged for her, and Dmo Xian was the quietest. When she walked out of the courtyard. Chapter 38:43. Kitty Li smelled Yiqing Luo's scent, and was the first to jump up and pounce towards her. Sister. Yiqing Luo hugged her. The few of them also looked towards Yiqing Luo. Have you recovered? Jun Qinggu looked at Yiqing Luo from head to toe. Yiqing Luo nodded. After a nap, my body and mind are relaxed. Tizkeki. That's because you don't know what the Overlord did for you after you fell asleep. Zomo's sloppy voice was heard. What did this mean? Zoemo rubbed his chin and gave a playful smile. Your Overlord, after you fell asleep, gave you a full body check. His voice dragged on with a hint of mockery. Jun Qinggu directly threw the teacup in her hand towards Zoemo. Zoemo raised his palm and split the teacup open. Don't say it's so dirty. Jun Qingwu shot a glance at him and then looked at Yiqing Luo as she explained. The Overlord said that you had expended too much energy in the array. Even if you managed to grab hold of the opportunity to break through, the energy after the breakthrough had enriched your body and mind, but the energy that erupted earlier had still affected your body. She paused and continued. So after you fell asleep, the Overlord used some herbs to make incense to help you relieve the fatigue and replenish the energy in your body. Yiqing Luo was stunned. Wasn't he injured? No wonder. After she woke up, she felt that her body and mind were comfortable and light like a swallow. Initially she thought that this was the reaction after a night's rest after the breakthrough. She didn't expect. It was Xianhe. Didn't he need to rest at all? The Overlord knows his limits. Even if it's for you, he won't tire himself out. Jun Qinggu comforted her. Then where did he go now? Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes. That fool, silently waiting for her to fall asleep, for the sake of her body, but completely disregarding herself. He was injured and didn't even know how to rest properly. This man, when he started to pamper others, it made one's legs go soft. Kitty Li snuggled into her arms and said, Overlord brother-in-law heard from Sister Zishi that there is a stock of medicinal herb that is especially helpful to you at the West Cliff Mountain, so I followed her to pick it. Yiqing Luo's lips suddenly pursed tightly. Dizun knows his limits. Don't worry. Jun Qingwu saw Yiqing Luo's expression change and immediately held her arm, bringing her to the stone bench. I am angry. Yiqing Luo's eyes were slightly sunken, so sunken that it turned black. He's worried about me. I'll also be worried about him. I'm still injured and still running around. She pursed her lips even tighter as she spoke. Then he broke free from Jun Qingwu's grasp. No, I have to go to the Western Cliff Mountain to look for him. Dizun has been gone for some time. Even if you go there now, you might not be able to find him. Jun Qingwu hurriedly hugged her. If you're angry, just wait for him to come back. Can't you just vent it on him? Yiqing Luo halted her footsteps. Jun Qingwu's words made sense. The West Cliff Mountain was huge. She went in search. Perhaps Dmo Xian was already on his way back. Yiqing Luo dispelled the idea of going to West Cliff Mountain, and recalled what Kitty Li said earlier. Earlier you said, Zishi, is she awake? In the spirit-devouring array, Gu Zishi was affected by the array, and had fallen into a coma. Yiqing Luo guessed that she would probably wake up soon. Later on the auction event happened. Hearing the news that Gu Zishi had already woken up, Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 38:44. Kitty Li replied with an N, and immediately pouted her lips as she mumbled. Sister has only been separated from Kitty for a month and already got to know so many friends. If Kitty Li didn't find Sister in time, Would sister forget about Kitty Lee? The little girl's voice was filled with grievance. As though she was fighting for favor, her little head was raised up high to look at her. Yiqing Luo rubbed Kitty Lee's furry little head as she laughed softly. I can forget anyone but Kitty Lee. My friends are Kitty Lee's friends. Kitty Lee's face finally revealed a smile after her fur was smoothed. She had just finished smoothing Kitty Lee's fur. Suddenly a little head came into her arms. In front of her was Mo Ying's tender figure, and that adorable Lolita's expressionless face. Yiqing Luo was stunned. Mo Ying put her head under Yiqing Luo's palm as she spat out a word stiffly, touch. Alright, this was a fight for favor. Looking at the two kids in front of her, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh. Then he raised his hand and rubbed the heads of each of them. Mo Ying's stiff lips curled upwards. His smile was stiff and unnatural when compared to his expressionless face. Yiqing Luo pinched Mo Ying's face as her fingers landed on her raised lips. Shadow can smile more. Mo Ying tilted her head as her dense long eyelashes blinked and nodded. In. Just as she was saying that, Yiqing Luo acutely felt a scorching gaze falling on her. She immediately looked over. She saw a slender figure standing at the entrance of the courtyard. Silver hair and black robe. The gentle breeze made the desolation on the man's body even more obvious. It was Qiao Yinyan. He was looking at her without blinking. No, more accurately. His attention was still on Mo Ying. Only occasionally a glance, which made Yiqing Luo couldn't help but pay attention to it. When she looked over, Qiao Yinyan also raised his eyes and met her gaze. Yiqing Luo understood. She whispered something to Mo Ying and Kitty Lee. Then she walked towards Qiao Yinyan. Do you have time? I want to talk to you. Qiao Yinyan looked at her, his eyes dark and heavy. Yiqing Luo understood his meaning as she nodded her head. Following closely behind him, the two of them walked out of the courtyard. Qiao Yinyan walked in front. His slender figure looked extremely lonely from the back. It was as if some darkness had covered his radiance. His entire person was very dispirited. Looking at his back view, Yiqing Luo sighed and took the initiative to open her mouth. You're looking for me, to ask about the matters regarding Shadow, right? Qiao Yinyan's footsteps suddenly halted. Yiqing Luo was very close. It could be seen that his body under the black robe had tensed up. As expected, it was because of Mo Ying. Mentioning Mo Ying, his reaction was huge. Mo Ying, was she really like this from the beginning? He didn't turn around, but from his voice, one could tell how confused and apprehensive he was. Yiqing Luo looked at his back view for a long time and didn't reply. Then she walked slowly to him, looked into his eyes and said word by word. Whether it's true or not, from the moment you came to ask me, you already have the answer in your heart, isn't it? Qiao Yinyan's pupils contracted slightly. Chapter 38:45. Qiao Yinyan's eyes flashed past a gloomy glint. He clenched his fists as his expression turned cold. Looking at his expression, Yiqing Luo raised her brows slightly as she pursed her lips slightly, revealing a hint of coldness. You should be able to tell that Shadow's current condition is not that of a normal person. Indeed, from the first time she met Mo Ying, Yiqing Luo felt strange. But she heard from Long Yinzhan and the rest that Mo Ying had always been like this. So she dispelled her intention to probe further. But now that she saw Qiao Yinyan, and thinking back to what Qiao Yinyan had said earlier, Qiao Yinyan felt that Mo Ying's current look was an act, which meant he had met Mo Ying, and it was the other side of Mo Ying. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyelids slightly. That girl who looked like a little Lolita had an expressionless face. Especially those big round eyes. They were so beautiful, but they were empty and devoid of life. Every word and action, every action. They were like puppets that were being manipulated by strings. If it was the previous Mo Ying, she wasn't like this, which meant that there must be a reason why Mo Ying became like this. Qiao Yinyan's breathing became hurried. He raised his head abruptly as his eyes stared at Yiqing Luo. That gaze seemed to be urging her to continue speaking. Yiqing Luo was extremely curious about what had happened between Qiao Yinyan and Mo Ying. Moreover, she could tell Qiao Yinyan had deep feelings for Mo Ying. She was basically certain. The woman in Xiao Yinyan's heart that Gui Wu mentioned earlier was undoubtedly Mo Yuing. Yi Qingluo thought about it and told Xiao Yinyan about the strange parts. During the world-destroying battle in the Nirvana realm, the secluded palace had targeted Mo Yuying's soul. From the godless island, they had obtained a pitch-black dagger that targeted Mo Yuing. After that, the period when Mo Yuing was unconscious, her face and her eyes all had more of a human radiance. At that time, Mo Yuing really looked like a normal person. But after that, she reverted back to that stiff puppet look. After Yi Qingluo finished speaking about these things, the more Xiao Yinyan listened, the deeper his frown became. In the end, his eyes were burning. Seeing Xiao Yinyan's expression, Yi Qingluo was almost certain. No matter what happened between Xiao Yinyan and Mo Yuing in the past, it didn't matter how angry Xiao Yinyan was when he saw Mo Yuing. In the end, he still had deep feelings for Mo Yuing. No matter how Xiao Yinyan tried to refute it, it was the truth. Speaking of this, she was also very curious about something. Since you've always had Mo Yuing in your heart, then why, when you first met me, your attitude towards me was so? Yi Qingluo deliberated over her words and finally used 2 words to describe it. So ambiguous? It was indeed very ambiguous. Xiao Yinyan's attitude towards her. No matter who came to see it, they would all misunderstand, right? When she went to the Qiao mansion, Patriarch Qiao's eyes were shining as he looked at her. Clearly, she had misunderstood Xiao Yinyan's attitude towards her. Not to mention others. Even she had her doubts several times. If it wasn't for the fact that she felt that Xiao Yinyan's attention towards her didn't seem to be the kind of love between a man and a woman. She wanted to have an open and honest talk with Xiao Yinyan, while she was silently cursing in her heart. Chapter 3846. Don't tell me. It's really because of what Gui Wu said. After Yi Qingluo finished her words, she clicked her tongue as her face was filled with a teasing smile. So the reason why you treated me so well right from the start was because Teacher Gui Yu requested you to take care of me. Xiao Yinyan's expression froze. Not only his face, even the muscles on his body froze up. Following that, his flustered gaze evaded Yi Qingluo's line of sight as he lifted his leg and walked forward. That flustered look made him look like he had a guilty conscience. Yi Qingluo looked at his hurried back view as she couldn't help but laugh out loud. It seemed that her guess was not far from the truth. Xiao Yinyan took such good care of her. It was because of Gui Yu's advance greeting. This also explained why Patriarch Qiao was so passionate when he saw her. It must be Gui Yu, that old urchin, who intentionally said something to make Patriarch Qiao misunderstand, causing Patriarch Qiao to mistakenly think that she would become Qiao family's future daughter-in-law. Amen. Most importantly, Gui Yu seemed to have used Mo Yuying's name to greet Xiao Yinyan. That meant to say, Xiao Yinyan had always known that Mo Yuying was in Nirvana realm. He had been secretly paying attention to Mo Yuying? Then why? How could he not know about the changes in Mo Yuying? What had happened to Mo Yuying, which caused her to become like this? These questions looked like she could only ask Teacher Gui Yu after they met before she could find out. After Xiao Yinyan left, Yi Qingluo returned to the courtyard. Zomo's brows rose as he asked smilingly, "That lad looked for you. Is it to ask about Shadow?" Yi Qingluo nodded as her gaze fell onto Shadow. Mo Yuying tilted her head as she blinked. "Me?" Yi Qingluo waved at her. Mo Yuying immediately ran into Yi Qingluo's arms as she raised her exquisite and adorable face as she looked at her. Yi Qingluo touched her head. "Shadow doesn't remember that man at all?" "Xiao Yinan?" Mo Yuying mumbled this name. "Why should I remember him?" Yi Qingluo saw that she had even remembered Xiao Yinyan's name and raised her slender brows as she asked with a smile. "Looks like Shadow's impression of Yinyan is rather deep. Because he always stares at me with a very annoying gaze." Mo Yuying's answer was very straightforward. Looking at Mo Yuying's expressionless face, Yi Qingluo rejoiced that she had scared Xiao Yinyan away earlier. Otherwise, how painful would it be for him to hear this sentence? "Shadow, let me ask you a question. Yiqing Luo placed both her hands on Mo Ying's shoulders and slightly bent down to meet her gaze. Mo Ying blinked her eyes. Her empty and lifeless eyes were extremely black. In your memory, have you lost a certain period of memory? Yiqing Luo asked seriously. Mo Ying blinked her empty eyes again. Do you think that I have forgotten about Xiao Yinyan? Yiqing Luo nodded calmly. Yes, so, you really don't remember him, right? I don't have his memory. Mo Ying shook her head stiffly. As for whether or not I lost my memory, I don't know. You don't know? This sentence made Yiqing Luo extremely surprised. Mo Ying replied. My memory is very chaotic and I can't remember if I have lost any memory. But I really don't know Xiao Yinyan. How could a normal person's memory be chaotic? Chapter 38-47. Looks like Mo Ying would become a puppet without a soul. There had to be a reason. Moreover, this reason might be related to Mo Ying's chaotic memories. If you want to clarify your relationship with Yin Yan, after you return to Nirvana Realm, you can look for Teacher Guiyu and ask him. He should know something. Yiqing Luo left the choice to herself. Mo Ying didn't reply and just stared at him with her lifeless eyes. No one knew what she was thinking. At this moment, Qiao family's housekeeper came over to invite Yiqing Luo and the rest to head to the main hall for their meal. This was the Qiao family's territory. The news of her waking up and Xiao Yinyan walking out of the courtyard would definitely reach Patriarch Qiao's ears very quickly. Family head Qiao's actions were quite fast. Yiqing Luo thought about it and accepted the invitation. If she were to wait for Dmo Xian to return, her imagination would run wild, and she would be restless. Go to the main hall. It's more lively there, and it can also divert some attention. Anyway, when Dmo Xian returned, they could just grab anyone to ask and they would know where he was. The group followed the butler to the main hall of the Qiao family. Indeed, as Yiqing Luo had expected, a small banquet was set up in the main hall of the Qiao family. The long tables on both sides were filled with guests. Yiqing Luo gauged with her eyes. There were about 40 of them. When he saw Yiqing Luo and her entourage walking over, those people immediately stood up and respectfully cupped their hands towards them with smiles on their faces. Madam D. Madam D. Madam D. Various voices affectionately called out to Yiqing Luo. The smile on his face, the respect in his tone. There was a hint of flattery that was hard to detect. Patriarch Qiao immediately went forward to welcome them. Lady D, come this way please, this way please. Yiqing Luo looked around. In the main seat of the main hall was a rectangular table. He counted the seats. It just so happened to be their position. Yiqing Luo didn't stand on ceremony with them as she walked directly to the main seat and sat down. Hey, what kind of formation is this? Zoemo muttered softly. Yiqing Luo shot a glance at Zoemo as her lips curled into a faint smile. These people are from various large powerhouses in the Earth domain. He had just looked around. There were many familiar faces present. They were all profound practitioners who had survived the auction. Ever since Patriarch Qiao sent the butler to invite them, Yiqing Luo could roughly guess that the purpose of the invitation was probably to discuss about the auction. However, inviting so many people was beyond her expectations. Imperial Madam, please forgive me for taking the liberty to let these friends in. Qiao family head's temper had changed, and he seemed to be very calm. But the expression he shot towards Yiqing Luo had betrayed his inner thoughts. Patriarch Qiao stared at her with a fiery gaze. From time to time he would glance at his son, who was sitting quietly beside him. Clearly he had not given up on the idea of pairing her up with Xiao Yinyan. Yiqing Luo glanced at Mo Ying from the corner of her eyes, and then smiled as she shook her head. This is the Qiao residence. Whoever the Qiao family wants to receive is the Qiao family's right. Patriarch Qiao's smile froze. The smiles on the faces of the profound practitioners from the various great forces also froze. Since they came to the Qiao residence, their intentions were already very clear. Was Yiqing Luo pretending not to understand, or did she really not understand? The atmosphere in the main hall was tense. Chapter 38-48. Qiao family's patriarch broke the deadlock. Various powerhouses cultivators naturally wouldn't continue to put on a stiff expression and make the atmosphere so stiff. One by one, they raised their wine cups and respectfully toasted towards Yiqing Luo's direction as they expressed their gratitude to these cultivators. Yiqing Luo wasn't disgusted, but they were definitely not the same kind of people. But as the saying goes, don't slap a smiling face. These powerful cultivators from various powerhouses who were usually high up on the top were now putting on a smiling face to a junior like her. Yiqing Luo wouldn't really rub her nose in front of them as her performance was too cold. To tell the truth, Yiqing Luo herself was very clear. The main reason why these people were so polite to her was not because she had broken the auction's array, allowing everyone to survive, but because of emotion. She clearly saw that when she and the group of people entered the main hall, quite a number of gazes were wandering around her, searching for him. Yiqing Luo understood everyone's thoughts. After all, the strong were revered. Everyone respected Mo Xian, and she was rather proud. Her lips curled slightly, her smile was distant, not easy to get close to, but she wasn't rude. There's no need to thank me. The reason why I work so hard is not just because of you. She stood up and down the wine in her cup in one gulp as she continued. If the array is not broken, all of us will die in the array, so I'm doing it for myself. Although that's the case, but Imperial Madam fought with the Palace of Darkness and almost lost her life. She even used her own blood to test the array and broke the array. These are all indisputable facts. One of the powerhouses who was seated in front cupped his fists and said, "Everything that Imperial Madam has done to break the array, we will remember it in our hearts and express our deep gratitude." Another cultivator continued. Immediately, there were other cultivators who started to praise her. The main hall instantly became noisy. Yiqing Luo immediately raised her hand to stop everyone's bootlicking. Her smile remained unchanged and the expression on her face didn't change at all. "Thank you for your kindness. During the auction, I actually made it very clear that the reason why I risked my life was because I didn't want Palace of Darkness's evil plan to succeed. If you really want to thank me, then use your power to find the hidden forces of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Start this war with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness and win. That's enough." Yiqing Luo's words made everyone's voices of thanks to stop abruptly. They all looked at each other. Regarding what the Abyss Palace had done, many forces had already put the Abyss Palace on their blacklist. After all, the other party was bullying him. If they didn't take some action, they would definitely be killed. Wouldn't the other party think that they were easy to bully? This point, even if Yiqing Luo didn't mention it. They would also investigate the power of the Palace of Darkness. Their losses this time could be said to be half of the wings of the entire land. How could they let go of the Netherworld Palace? From the burning rage in everyone's eyes, Yiqing Luo could tell what they were thinking. If the people of the land domain were willing to investigate the Palace of Darkness, no matter how deep the Palace of Gloomy Darkness hid, he would eventually reveal his foxtail. Currently, Yiqing Luo wasn't worried that the secluded Darkness Palace would take advantage of the fact that the Earth Realm's vitality was severely damaged to swallow the Earth Realm. The commotion caused by the auction was too big. This had already attracted the attention of the historian of balance. Chapter 38-49. If Secluded Palace were to take action now, it would definitely attract the attention of the higher realms people. By then, whatever plans Secluded Palace wanted to carry out would definitely be difficult. What Imperial Madam said is right. Our three cities' common enemy is Secluded Palace. Our forces have suffered heavy losses because of Secluded Palace, so we must take revenge for this. Imperial Madam, don't worry. Even if you don't mention it, we will not let Secluded Palace off. That's right. I am absolutely irreconcilable with Secluded Palace. Everyone clenched their fists, venting their anger and hatred towards Secluded Palace. Yiqing Luo didn't continue exchanging pleasantries with them and inciting them. Secluded Palace's method in the auction. They had completely lost the hearts of the people in the Earth domain. Even now, When Secluded Palace wanted to recruit people in the Earth domain, no one would go over. Those who joined Secluded Palace in the auction, each and every one of them, died much worse than the others. Those who joined, those who wanted to betray, turned into blood mist and had their souls scattered. Those who didn't want to betray were directly killed by those monsters in Secluded Palace who couldn't differentiate between friend and foe. It was simply insane to the extreme. Whoever wanted to join Secluded Palace was simply looking for death. Yi Qingluo looked at everyone's infuriated looks as she slowly sat down. Her expression was still somewhat solemn. Suddenly, a fair and slender hand stretched out in front of her. Her jade-white fingers held a wine cup. The wine was swaying in the cup. Jun Qingwu's cold voice was heard by her ear. "Have a drink." Yi Qingluo glanced sideways and met Jun Qingwu's cold expression. She smiled as she poured herself a full cup of wine, raised the wine cup and clinked it with hers. The two of them didn't say anything as they raised their heads at the same time and downed the wine in one gulp. When they put down the wine cup, Jun Qingwu propped her chin as her brows rose slightly as she looked at her indifferently. "Why? Still thinking about Secluded Palace?" "MN." Yi Qingluo's slender brows creased tightly. "I don't understand. Why did Secluded Palace take such a huge risk to take action during the auction?" She paused slightly and suddenly thought of something as she turned her body sideways to look at Jun Qingwu. "During this period of time, have you found out any news about the mastermind of Secluded Palace?" Jun Qingwu's expression darkened when she mentioned this point. She shook her head. "The Palace of Gloomy Darkness is very cunning. The real mastermind is hidden too well. Currently, the only information we know is that that person is definitely someone with a high position in the heaven realm. Or it might be related to the god realm. Divine realm?" Yi Qingluo pursed her pink lips slightly. "In the upper realm. Is there really a god realm?" Although the three realms of the heaven-earth-god realm were collectively known as the upper three realms, but what Yi Qingluo heard were mostly from the earth realm and heaven realm. There were very, very few rumors about the god realm. It was said that after the divine emperor passed away 10,000 years ago, the divine world gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. Now, although there were still many legends in the divine world, there were also people who said that Dmo Xian came from the divine realm. However, it was impossible to ascertain whether the god realm still had true godlike existences. Chapter 3850. The Palace Lord of the Nether Palace on the Surface. In Yi Qingluo's mind, an image of a black-robed figure with a black cloak covering his entire face appeared. Towards that Palace Lord of the Nether Palace. Yi Qingluo's memory was still very deep. What made her most unforgettable was that Palace Lord's gaze towards her. Very strange. Very familiar. However, she was unable to recall where that sense of familiarity came from. Furthermore, that Palace Lord's actions made her puzzled and puzzled. Most importantly, she was sealed in the palace which was filled with evil qi by the real mastermind. It was also that Palace Lord who told Dmo Xian the correct location of the palace, which allowed Dmo Xian to find her in time. Who was the Palace Lord of the Nether Palace on the surface? Have you thought of any clues? Jun Qingwu saw Yi Qingluo's grave expression and that half-squinted eyes, reflecting a piercingly cold ray. Yi Qingluo regained her senses and met with Jun Qingwu's gaze which seemed to know everything. She was slightly stunned as she shook her head. Nothing. Jun Qingwu only took a deep look at her and didn't continue to ask. Yi Qingluo's eyelids drooped as her eyes turned deep and her slightly cold voice was piercingly cold. Nether Palace. Sooner or later I will personally destroy it. The two of them were discussing in a low voice. Various powerhouses cultivators had already expressed their attitude. They had set a common goal: to deal with the Nether Palace. After that, under Patriarch Qiao's instructions, they started to eat and drink. Many powerhouses cultivators tried to find all sorts of topics to talk to Yi Qingluo. But Yi Qingluo's attitude was very calm. Alienated, but there was nothing wrong with it. She said that she was high and mighty, totally looking down on them. But Yi Qingluo's tone and attitude towards them was still considered polite. She said that she wanted to get to know them, to have more friends and more paths. But Yi Qing Luo's attitude was extremely alienated, with no intention to continue to develop a future with them. This made everyone feel strange, and at the same time unable to get on her good side. They were stuck here, neither up nor down, which was indeed uncomfortable. Just like this, it continued for about 2 incense sticks worth of time. Suddenly, a howl was heard from outside the main hall. Hey, hey, hey! Why are you dragging me? Who are you? What do you want? That howl was quite tragic. Then, the orderly voices of the Qiao family's guards could be heard, but it couldn't stop the howl from getting closer. Everyone in the main hall heard this voice. Patriarch Qiao stood up first, and was about to rush out. Soon after, a black shadow was thrown into the main hall. Patriarch Qiao subconsciously raised his hand and slashed over. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were sharp, and when she saw that black shadow being thrown over, her eyes changed. The glower flame fan in her hands moved and a hurricane was formed, sweeping the black shadow towards her. Qiao family's head slashed the air and saw the direction where the black shadow turned. Just as he was about to ask Yi Qing Luo, the black figure that was thrown and rolled on the ground a few times. Then, holding onto his waist, he climbed up while shouting, "Ouch!" He wore a green robe, and his hair was a little messy due to the torment. He raised his hand and rubbed his face that was hurt from the fall. His handsome face was very upright. The most eye-catching thing was that pair of dark golden eyes, sparkling with a brilliant luster which made one unable to shift their gaze away. Pay, boss, pay. After seeing that black shadow's face clearly, Patriarch Qiao was stunned. Chapter 38:51. What on earth was going on? Pei Xing rubbed his own face, and was still drawing in cold air from the pain. As he touched his ears, he stood up and cried out to Yi Qing Luo. Luo, save me. There's a crazy old man who kept dragging me to look for you. It hurts so much. Yi Qing Luo noticed that his face and ears had turned red from the pinching. Before she could say a word. Immediately following that, a gush of horrifying aura gushed into the main hall's main door. The surrounding pressure instantly dropped to the lowest point. Many cultivators' expressions turned gloomy as they held onto their weapons alertly as their sharp eyes stared sharply at the main hall's main door. Could it be that the secluded palace had made a comeback? Thinking of this, everyone became even more alert. Even the aura on his body had become much more powerful. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she immediately stood up and crossed the long table, pulling Pei Xing behind her as she straightened her back and looked towards the main door. Pei Xing said, "There was an old man looking for her? He specifically mentioned her name to look for her? Who could it be?" The aura in the main hall surged even more ferociously. Wave after wave of airwaves. Yi Qing Luo felt that the surrounding air seemed to have congealed. Just at this moment, a figure hurried over from the door and entered. Just in a blink of an eye, that figure had already appeared in the middle of the main hall. He stood face to face with Yi Qing Luo. The distance between the two of them was not more than 10 steps. That was a white-haired old man dressed in brocade robes, but he had a dignified demeanor. His entire body was in flames. The minute he appeared, he gave everyone a huge sense of oppression. The profound practitioners of the various major forces immediately felt a great pressure bearing down on them. It was as if their bodies were being pressed to the ground by an invisible force. This kind of feeling, Yi Qing Luo was also affected. Her slender brows creased as she met the old man's sharp and imposing eyes. "Who are you?" She opened her mouth and asked coldly. The old man's gaze was fixed on Yi Qing Luo, as though he was inspecting some goods as he sized Yi Qing Luo up. Following that, his brows creased tightly, as though he was despising her. Yi Qing Luo. 1. Face. Stunned. Force. Who on earth was this old man? What was with that look of disdain? "You are Yi Qing Luo?" The old man asked calmly. Yi Qing Luo realized that this old man might not be from the earth domain. She didn't answer and just looked at him warily. The old man saw that Yi Qing Luo was ignoring him. He stared fiercely at Pei Xing as he shouted sternly, "The Yi Qing Luo you mentioned, is it this woman?" Pei Xing was hollered at, and his entire body shrank behind Yi Qing Luo. At the same time, he touched his ears. "How can a man like you hide behind a woman's back?" Our Huangfu clan doesn't have a man like you. When the old man saw Pei Sheng's actions, he couldn't help but frown and shout at him sternly. Yi Qingluo caught onto a crucial point. Huangfu clan? This old man, someone from the Huangfu clan. In other words, people from the heaven realm. This Huangfu family, wasn't it one of the heaven realm's 4 great families, Xiao Jin's family? Why would he come to the land? It seemed like the target was still looking for her. Yi Qingluo expressed that she was in a daze. You are from the Huangfu family? The old man glanced coldly at Yi Qingluo and shifted his gaze onto Pei Sheng, who was behind her. Stand upright and upright. Pei Sheng was so scared that he quivered. He immediately stood out from behind Yi Qingluo. And he even stood up straight. After he stood up, he then realized what he had done. Chapter 38:52. This old man. What did he mean by that? Not only Yi Qingluo was stunned. The surrounding cultivators from various powerhouses were all stunned as well. All of them stared at the old man in unison, guessing his intention for coming. In the old man's eyes, it seemed as though he couldn't see anyone else. After seeing Pei Sheng stand up straight, that solemn and heavy expression on his face eased up a little, but the gaze which he shot towards Pei Sheng was still that little bit of disdain and displeasure. But this disdain, as compared to the disdain which Yi Qingluo saw in the old man's eyes, was absolutely not the same kind of emotion. So, how much did this old man despise her? Just as she was thinking, that old man's vision shifted onto Yi Qingluo. Following that, his white brows creased as he raised his chin and opened his mouth. Yi Qingluo, I heard that. You're the one who saved this lad, and even activated this lad's concealed Huangfu bloodline? Yi Qingluo controlled herself, ignoring the old man's arrogant tone. From the old man's aura, if they were to fight, she might be at a disadvantage. Furthermore, what did that old man say earlier? Activated Huangfu bloodline? Huangfu. Yi Qingluo suddenly recalled Xiao Jin's pair of golden eyes. Wait a minute. She recalled it. Huangfu family. Their unique point was, Huangfu family's people's eyes were all golden. Right. Golden. She finally recalled. When she saw Pei Sheng's outburst, his eyes flashed a dark golden glow. And where did that familiar feeling come from? Because previously, Xiao Jin's eyes had also turned golden. But the color of Pei Sheng's eyes was very different from Xiao Jin's golden color. It was also different from the usual color of Huangfu family's eyes. If she didn't remember wrongly, those Huangfu family's people, other than Xiao Jin, who the Huangfu family had recognized as the successor, all the younger generation, only had one golden eye. One gold, one ink. But Pei Sheng's eye color. Not only was it that kind of dark golden color, but both eyes revealed a dark golden glow. But this old man in front of her said, Pei Sheng's Huangfu bloodline had been activated? What was going on? Looking at Yi Qingluo's puzzled expression, the displeasure and disdain on the old man's face became even more obvious. He walked towards Yi Qingluo in big strides. His footsteps were steady and his footsteps brought along the wind. His imposing manner was overbearing. As he approached, Yi Qingluo didn't evade. Instead, he frowned and met the old man's gaze. Then he stared into the old man's eyes, searching for traces of gold. Facing Yi Qingluo's piercing gaze, the old man's brows furrowed even tighter, and he shouted sternly, Little girl, I'm asking you a question. This voice was mixed with Xian energy. Yi Qingluo couldn't help but dig her buzzing ears. I don't even know who you are. Why should I answer a stranger's question? The old man's face darkened. Apparently he had never met someone like Yi Qingluo who wasn't afraid of his prestige, and was so rude to him. His eyes stared intently at Yi Qingluo. His sharp eyes occasionally flashed with a golden luster. Yi Qingluo caught it. Indeed someone from the Huangfu family. Yi Qingluo's brows rose as she shot a glance at Pei Sheng's direction, and continued to speak. You specially came over from Heaven Realm, because you sensed Pei Sheng's Huangfu bloodline, and wanted to bring him back. Chapter 38:53. As he spoke, he looked at the old man again. And who on earth are you? The minute you saw me, You dragged me here and clamored to look for Ah Luo. What's going on? Hearing Pei Sheng's words, the old man frowned. You don't even know your own identity? Me. Pei Sheng was even more confused. What identity? What are you guys talking about? The old man's face turned even darker. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and stopped Pei Sheng from asking any further questions as she directly opened her mouth. Ah Sheng had grown up in the Earth Realm since young and his parents are from the Earth Realm. If he's really from the Huangfu family, then you shouldn't be asking him but your Huangfu family yourself. Why on earth did you allow Ah Sheng to wander around in the Earth Realm? Being criticized by a junior, the old man couldn't keep his face. His face sunk as he shouted angrily. I will investigate this matter clearly. I don't need you to point fingers. So, you want to bring Ah Sheng to the Heaven Realm? Yiqing Luo asked. Yiqing Luo and the old man's exchange. His words entered the ears of all the profound practitioners of the major forces. That was to set off a huge wave. Heaven Realm. This master, is he from the Heaven Realm? Didn't you hear? The imperial madam said. Huangfu family. Huangfu family? One of the 4 heavenly families in the Heaven Realm. Other than the Huangfu family, which is one of the 4 heavenly families, is there a second Huangfu family? Why would the Huangfu family from the Heaven Realm come to the Earth Realm? And those cultivators in Without Embroiling City heard that Yiqing Luo wanted to ask about the Huangfu family and bring Pei Sheng to the Heaven Realm. They were even more shocked. What was the relationship between Pei Sheng and the Huangfu family? Why did it sound like Pei Sheng was from the Huangfu family? This piece of heavy news, one after another, made everyone dumbfounded. The surrounding people's discussion made Pei Sheng nervous. His eyeballs rolled, looking at the old man and Yiqing Luo from time to time. He had a stomach full of questions to ask, but looking at the atmosphere between the old man and Yiqing Luo, he swallowed back the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Young lady, in that case, this young lad is indeed you, and you've stimulated his Huangfu blood meridians? Old man imitated Yiqing Luo's tone, as he countered with a question. Yiqing Luo was just about to reply. Then he threw another sentence that almost made her explode. Since you've activated this kid's Huangfu bloodline, I'll make the decision. From now on you'll be this kid's wife. When you return to the Huangfu clan, the 2 of you will get married. These words shocked the profound practitioners of the various great powers so much that they almost jumped up. Grandpa, do you know what you are saying? Do you know who the girl opposite you is? If Lord Dizun were to hear this, not to mention the Huangfu clan, even the entire Heaven Realm would be turned upside down by Dizun. However, the old man didn't have the ability to read minds, so he naturally didn't know what everyone was thinking. That's it. Now, the 2 of you will follow me to the Celestial Realm. The old man looked as if it was a matter of course. Yiqing Luo and Pei Sheng looked at each other in dismay. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched a few times. Just as she was about to open her mouth to clarify things with the old man, she heard a few anxious voices coming from outside the main hall. Grandpa, don't mess around. Immediately following that, she saw 3 figures flying over. In a blink of an eye, they scurried to the old man's side. Chapter 38:54. The woman ran to the old man's side. Grandpa, this won't do. She can't. Shut up. The old man's expression turned cold. He put his hands behind his back in a dignified and domineering manner. I've made up my mind. Their marriage has been decided just like that. The young lady's face was pale as she looked anxiously at Yiqing Luo's direction, and stretched out her hand to pull the old man, wanting to say something. The old man impatiently shook off the woman. The other 2 men also followed up. Grandfather, Fengyan doesn't mean that. You don't know Yiqing Luo she is. I don't care what she is. Since she was the woman who had awakened that brat's bloodline, she was the one destined for that brat. I've already decided on this matter. All you need to do is to prepare for their return to the Huangfu clan. The 2 men's faces darkened even further. The woman opened her mouth a few times, but before she could say anything, the old man stopped her. It was Yiqing Luo who was slightly stunned when she saw the 3 of them appearing. Huangfu, Fengyan, And the other two young masters of the Huangfu clan? Weren't these three the three from the Huangfu clan that he had met in the Nirvana realm? It was also the time before Qiao Jin and Yen Xiaoyi confirmed their relationship. They actually came? They seemed to be calling that old man Grandpa, grandfather. In other words, this old man was Qiao Jin's grandfather. You know them? Hearing Yi Qingluo calling out his granddaughters and grandsons' names, the old man's brows creased as he looked suspiciously at Huangfu Fengyan and the rest. Huangfu Fengyan's beautiful face revealed a trace of panic. Grandfather. Hai Wei. To be able to make eldest young master Huangfu, third young master, and fourth young miss call you grandfather. I presume you're the Huangfu clan's patriarch, Huangfu Jintian, right? After knowing the other party's identity, the sharpness in Yi Qingluo's eyes had already been restrained. Although he wasn't too sure what had happened between Qiao Jin and the Huangfu clan, he wasn't too sure. He wasn't too sure why Qiao Jin would leave the Huangfu clan. However, the other party was still Qiao Jin's grandfather. As Qiao Jin's brother, she naturally wouldn't be too overbearing. The old man, who was Huangfu Jintian's white brows rose as the gaze he shot at Yi Qingluo was filled with a different kind of scrutiny. Looks like you're rather familiar with the people from the Huangfu family. In Huangfu Jintian's eyes, Yi Qingluo was just a small cultivator from the earth realm. Their Huangfu clan had always resided in the heaven realm, and rarely appeared in the lower realm. How did Yi Qingluo know Huangfu family's young master and young miss? Furthermore, he could tell. Those three people from Huangfu family also recognized Yi Qingluo. Huangfu Jintian immediately waved his hand. Since we've known each other for a long time, then it's even easier to decide. Now we will return to the Huangfu clan and arrange the marriage for you too. The three from the Huangfu clan were so shocked that their faces turned pale. Just as he was about to speak, Pei Xing finally reacted, and his eyes widened as he looked at Huangfu Jintian with a dumbfounded expression. What? You want me to marry Aluo? Me? Aluo? He repeated in disbelief. Huangfu family's rules are as such. If it's a lady who stimulated your Huangfu bloodline, then this lady will be your destined person. Huangfu Jintian spoke in a matter-of-fact tone. Moreover, aren't you very reliant on that lady? I. Pei Xing's face flushed red from Huangfu Jintian's words. Marry Aluo. Chapter 38:55. If the Overlord heard it, his little life would be lost. Pei Xing's mental state was on the verge of collapse. How old are you? You're getting married and you're still shy? This matter has been decided. Do you have any objections? Huangfu Jintian looked at Pei Xing with disdain and displeasure, as though there wasn't a single part of Pei Xing that caught his eye. Following that, he swept his gaze towards the three people who were surrounding him, who obviously had something to say. Being stared at by Huangfu Jintian's domineering and dignified gaze, the three of them wanted to speak but didn't dare to. Just as the entire main hall had sunk into a strange atmosphere, a cold and dignified voice brought along an oppressive pressure as it poured over. Towards old Master Huangfu's words, I have an objection. At the same time, there was a light panting but a loud and clear voice. I don't agree. Two voices were heard at the same time. It instantly attracted everyone's attention. Huangfu Jintian felt that the dignified voice was very familiar, but momentarily, he couldn't recall when he had heard it before. On the contrary, it was the three people from the Huangfu family who were beside him who were so scared that they started trembling. Outside the main hall, a tall figure walked into it. The first thing that entered their eyes was that luxurious and pressing purple robe. Following that, it was that oppressive and sharp aura that was emitted from his entire body. When people looked at his absolutely magnificent face, they couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. They were forced by this invisible aura until they didn't dare to look straight at him. He walked over slowly. His brows were like swords, his dark eyes like a lake. As he got closer step by step, he was like an unsheathed sharp blade, emitting an incomparably cold frost. Cold and domineering to the extreme. Huangfu Jintian's pupils suddenly constricted. His entire mood became stiff and solemn. Overlord. Huangfu Jintian stared at the man who was walking over. I heard that there's news of Overlord in the Earth realm. I've not expected that Overlord is really here. He paused as his vision shot towards Yi Qingluo and Pei Sheng, who were stunned on the spot as his voice deepened. I wonder if Overlord has any objection towards me? I have no objection towards you. Dmo Xian had already walked closer, and that domineering and imposing aura seemed as though it was going to destroy everything in the surroundings. As he approached, Huangfu Zhentian felt an enormous pressure pressing down on him. Ben Zun has a big objection to your decision. The man's deep and husky voice said word by word. Huangfu Zhentian was shocked by his sudden approach to the point of taking a step back. You. Huangfu Zhentian's brows creased tightly as he stared at Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian took a direct stride, passing Huangfu Zhentian as he walked right in front of Yi Qingluo. You want to ask why, right? Dmo Xian's thin lips curled up frivolously as he suddenly stretched out his hand and wrapped it around Yi Qingluo's slender waist, pressing the young lady into his arms. Then he glanced sideways. His eyes, which were as deep as a lake, were filled with a cold light. Why do you think so? Huangfu Zhentian was immediately stunned. He looked at Dmo Xian in shock, and looked at the hand which was wrapped around Yi Qingluo's waist. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Was he seeing things? Was he seeing things? Why was the Overlord hugging Yi Qingluo? Dmo Xian's appearance made everyone break out in cold sweat for Huangfu Zhentian. Chapter 3856. Dmo Xian shot a chilly glance over. His thin lips curled up as he spoke with a smile which didn't look like a smile. If you had that kind of thinking, do you think you would be able to live till now? That gaze was so cold that Pei Sheng couldn't help but shrink back as his face was filled with terror. Damn. He was so wrong that he wanted to cry alright. The person who insisted on matching him with Yi Qingluo was that old man. What did it have to do with him? He was also a person who got shot while lying down alright. Dmo Xian retracted his gaze, and when his gaze fell onto Yi Qingluo, the look in his eyes became gentle and affectionate. Yi Qingluo, who was brought into the man's arms, naturally wrapped her arms around the man's waist as she raised her head and looked at Dmo Xian. Are you tired? Are you hurt? Not tired. Dmo Xian bent over and planted a kiss on her forehead as he spoke in a warm voice. Don't worry, there's nothing in this realm which can hurt me. Seeing that his expression wasn't unwell, Yi Qingluo then put on a straight face as her fingers hooked and pinched his waist fiercely. Who asked you to not rest properly, taking the opportunity when I'm asleep to do other things behind my back? Can't you just rest properly? He knew how to love her and take care of her body. Why didn't he know how to love her and take care of her? Hearing the young lady's worried words, Dmo Xian's brows flashed a trace of pampering smile. As he bent his head close to the young lady's face, that pair of black obsidian-like pupils were gradually tainted with a dark and deep luster. It seemed like there was some hidden emotion which needed to be harmonious. He leaned close to her ear as his voice was very hoarse, carrying an obvious meaning. You know how I can rest well? Yi Qingluo. Her face turned black. Damn it, she didn't know. Didn't want to know. Yi Qingluo rolled her eyes at him as she raised her hand and pushed the man's broad and muscular body away. Scram! The interaction between the two. In everyone's eyes, it was so sweet that it made their teeth ache. Especially when they saw Yi Qingluo had no qualms as she directly pushed Dmo Xian away and arrogantly asked him to scram. They were all stunned. This was probably. You must be the first person who dares to tell Lord Dizun to get lost, right? But looking at Dizun's sweet smile and tenderness, Dizun could not help but laugh. All right. The reason why the Imperial Madam could be so daring and fearless was because the Overlord doted on her. Once again, the profound practitioners of the various great powers felt it deeply. The love between Dizun and Diforan. The profound practitioners were aware of this a long time ago. But only now did Huangfu Zhentian seem to have understood something. He was completely dumbfounded. His eyes widened as he stared in shock at the two people hugging in front of him. Overlord and Yi Qingluo. The two of them. Huangfu Zhentian couldn't believe his eyes. He immediately turned his head and glared at the three people behind him. The three from the Huangfu clan were pale, and their bodies were trembling slightly when he met Huangfu Zhentian's gaze. The three of them subconsciously averted their gazes. Huangfu Zhentian immediately understood. The three of you already knew. Huangfu Fengyan bit her lower lip as she spoke softly. Grandfather, we wanted to tell you. But you didn't give us a chance to speak. Every time they opened their mouths, they were blocked by Huangfu Zhentian. What could they do? They were in despair too. Chapter 38:57. Huangfu trio lowered their heads. They felt resentful from being scolded, but didn't dare to voice it out. Huangfu Zhentian looked at the surrounding gazes as he felt embarrassed. He cleared his throat and tried his best to maintain a serious expression. Following that, he pointed the spearhead towards Pei Sheng. Stinky brat. Since it has nothing to do with Yi Qing. Miss Yi, why didn't you say so earlier? Pei Sheng had a dazed look. After Huangfu Zhentian scolded Pei Sheng, he cupped his hands towards Dmo Xian. It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Dmo Xian shot him a glance with a smile which didn't look like a smile as his thin lips curled into a frivolous smile, with a hint of coldness. Huangfu Zhentian felt even more embarrassed. Yi Qing Luo pushed Dmo Xian as she tidied up her collar and opened her mouth to break the deadlock. Huangfu family's old master. Why did he come all the way to the Earth realm? She paused slightly as she pointed at Pei Sheng. According to Ah Sheng's memory, he has a father and mother, and he grew up in the Earth realm since young. Old master's trip here is to grab hold of Ah Sheng, talking about this and that, deciding on Ah Sheng's marriage. Have you ever thought about Ah Sheng's thoughts? Huangfu Zhentian's open mouth slowly closed. The expression on his face slowly turned solemn and grave. Yi Qing Luo didn't wait for him to continue speaking. His gaze fell on the slender figure outside the main hall's door. Also, the old master made a mess of matchmaking without saying a word. Not only does my Ah Xian have objections, but I'm afraid that, and Ah Sheng also have objections. Following Yi Qing Luo's words, everyone looked towards the main door. They saw a delicate lady standing at the door. The ice blue long dress made the lady look lively and lovely. When Pei Sheng saw that person, his dark golden eyes flashed as he suddenly stood up from the ground and looked over in a daze. Little sister. Brother Sheng. The lady pursed her lips as she called out. Following that, she lifted her leg and walked into the main hall. Wasn't this Lady Gu Zishi? Pei Sheng immediately went up and grabbed Gu Zishi's wrist. Why are you here? Gu Zishi raised her head as her beautiful eyes looked at Pei Sheng's face without blinking. She took a deep breath as her pearly white teeth bit her lower lip. I came here with the Overlord. Pei Sheng wanted to say something. Huangfu Zhentian suddenly pushed Pei Sheng away and sized Gu Zishi up from head to toe. The more he looked, the deeper his frown became. After that, he took a few glances at Yi Qing Luo's direction. You're the lady who followed the Overlord and shouted that she had objections? Huangfu Zhentian naturally heard the lady's voice that rang out together with Dmo Xian earlier. It was only because he saw Dizun. He didn't care about the objection that the woman shouted. But now he saw this woman. Then he saw the atmosphere between the woman and Pei Sheng. Huangfu Zhentian furrowed his brows. Lord Dizun has an objection because of Miss Yi. Little miss, what about you? Gu Zishi's eyes flashed when she was called out. Under the pressure of Huangfu Zhentian's aura, even her delicate body was slightly trembling. However, when she glanced at Pei Sheng, she felt a chill run down her spine. However, she stubbornly raised her head and her beautiful eyes met Huangfu Zhentian's. It's because of Brother Sheng. Her crisp voice paused after every word, without the slightest hesitation. Her voice was like thunder as it landed heavily on Pei Sheng's heart. It was like a huge hammer, smashing down heavily. In his heart, he roughly guessed something. His entire person instantly became nervous. His heartbeat suddenly sped up. Just at this moment. Chapter 38:58. Pei Sheng's heart skipped a beat. Little sister. Gu Zishi used her gaze to stop him from saying what he wanted to say. I don't want to wait anymore. Gu Zixi looked at Pei Sheng and said softly, Pei Sheng, I really don't want to call you Brother Sheng anymore, and I don't want to hear you call me little sister. Pei Sheng's throat tightened. Looking at Gu Zixi's determined eyes, he wanted to escape for a moment. However, his hands were tightly wrapped by Gu Zixi's hands. The woman's unique softness made it impossible for him to escape. Gu Zixi's eyes were firm, and she looked at him without blinking. Pei Sheng, I said. I don't want to escape anymore. Her slender fingers gently held his hand and placed it on her heart. The woman's soft touch made Pei Sheng so shocked that he wanted to withdraw his hand. However, Gu Zixi held him firmly. His face turned red instantly. Gu Zixi smiled slightly, and her beautiful eyes were filled with tenderness. Do you feel it? My heart is beating faster because of you. This sentence was almost no different from the words, I like you. It was completely clear that she expressed her feelings to Pei Sheng. Pei Sheng's pupils kept enlarging. After Gu Zixi's words struck him in the heart, his face flushed red, as though it was about to burst into flames. His lips trembled and he stammered, little sister, you. He was nervous and excited. It made him feel as if there were colorful fireworks blooming in his mind. It made him unable to think about anything else. However, Gu Zixi grabbed his collar with her hand. She suddenly pulled him with both hands. Pei Sheng leaned forward. The distance between him and her was shortened. Pei Sheng, last time in the soul-devouring formation, I made it very clear that I don't want to be your little sister. The distance between him and her was very close. When Gu Zixi spoke, Pei Sheng could feel the woman's orchid fragrance. His face turned even redder. Even the muscles in his body were tense and excited, especially his heart, which was beating wildly. He couldn't control it at all. Gu Zixi's voice was sonorous and firm as she continued. I only have one question for you. Are you willing to give the two of us a chance to be together? That voice was filled with determination and expectation. Pei Sheng's heart thumped fiercely. He immediately looked at Gu Zixi. When he met Gu Zixi's beautiful eyes that were as bright as the stars and filled with determination, a certain place in his heart seemed to have been ruthlessly struck by something. Z11. His voice was hoarse as he subconsciously spat out these two words. There seemed to be something in his heart urging him to do something. Gu Zixi's beautiful eyes lit up. The corners of their mouths lifted into a smile. However, just as Pei Sheng was about to speak, an angry voice broke the sweet confession scene. What are you doing? A young lady was courting in front of so many people. Don't you have any shame? Huang Fuzhentian reached out, grabbed Pei Sheng's collar, and pulled him to his side. Then he looked at Gu Zixi with even more disgust and displeasure. Little girl, don't you know how to be reserved at all? Let me tell you, I will never agree to the thing between you and this kid. Chapter 38:59. Whereas Gu Zixi was originally grabbing onto Pei Sheng tightly, and all her strength was pressing onto him, Pei Sheng left. She instantly lost all her strength as her body suddenly fell forward. Zixi. Pei Sheng anxiously wanted to rush over to support Gu Zixi, but his wrist was held tightly by Huang Fuzhentian. Luckily Yiqing Luo moved swiftly in time as she shifted to Gu Zixi's side and caught her. Seeing Yiqing Luo supporting Gu Zixi in time, Pei Sheng heaved a sigh of relief. He angrily shook off Huang Fuzhentian's hand which was holding on to him. Who are you to me? This is between me and Zixi. What has it got to do with you? You're my Huangfu family's member. Tell me, what has it got to do with me? Huang Fuzhentian held onto his hand tightly. Pei Sheng's eyes turned red from anger. My surname is Pei. My father's surname is also Pei. I grew up in the Earth realm since young, and can't get in touch with your Huangfu family. Huang Fuzhentian's large palm locked onto his shoulder as he forced him to look at him in the eye. After that he said word by word, but your mother's surname is Huangfu. The anger in Pei Sheng's eyes suddenly froze. His struggling movements also stopped. His mother, Huangfu? Pei Sheng's brows creased tightly as he was unable to digest Huang Fuzhentian's words. Huang Fuzhentian looked at him. This pair of eyes of yours is the best proof. Although it's not pure golden eyes, but it's still my Huangfu family's bloodline. Pei Sheng shook his head as he struggled free from Huangfu Zhentian's hand in disbelief. Even if my mother's surname is Huangfu, that doesn't mean that. I'm related to your Huangfu family. For so many years. Even when my mother passed away, she didn't appear. On what basis do you make me believe you? Your mother? Huangfu Zhentian's expression sunk slightly as an undetectable sorrow flashed past his eyes, but very quickly, it dissipated in the imposing manner. No matter what, the fact that your Huangfu family's bloodline cannot be erased. Since you've already stimulated the Huangfu bloodline, then you must follow me back to Huangfu family. As for these messy relationships in the Earth realm, break it off. He shot a meaningful glance towards Gu Zixi direction. Pei Sheng was so shocked by this series of words that his head was about to explode. A moment ago. Furthermore, he had lived with her for so many years. Even though they were brother and sister, he had fallen in love with her, and their hearts were interlinked. He was excited and excited. The next moment, it was like throwing down a heavy bomb. His heart felt heavy, and he found it hard to breathe. He was unable to believe what Huangfu Zhentian said. But his rationality told him otherwise. To be able to make the dignified Huangfu family patriarch personally come from the heaven realm, they had definitely confirmed his identity. It couldn't be faked. However, he did not want to admit it. He didn't want to have anything to do with the Huangfu family. After so many years of cynicism and mockery, he had no choice but to accept it. All he wanted to do was protect his father's treasure assembly exchange hall, and live a good life with the people he cared about. Tisk! Suddenly a mocking sneer rang out clearly in the main hall. Following that, he saw Yiqing Luo holding on to Gu Zixi as she walked towards Pei Sheng. Her steps were light and her back was straight. Between her long and narrow eyes, there was a cold light that seemed to be smiling yet not smiling. The way he looked at Huangfu Zhentian seemed to be mocking something. Very provocative. Huangfu Zhentian's face immediately turned black. Chapter 3860. Yiqing Luo's tone was obviously heavy. Huangfu Zhentian naturally understood the meaning in her words. His expression sunk slightly as he took a look at Yiqing Luo. This question wasn't easy to answer. Yiqing Luo's attitude was obviously to stand up for Gu Zixi. If he really said that he didn't fancy Gu Zixi, that would be indirectly expressing that he didn't fancy the person whom the overlord's wife had taken a fancy to. That meant he didn't fancy the overlord's wife. But if he really agreed, he had taken a fancy to Gu Zixi. Could it be that he really let this stinky brat and Gu Zixi be together? Huangfu Zhentian was in a difficult position. Behind him, Huangfu Fengyan looked at Huangfu Zhentian's expression as her eyes flickered slightly. Following that, she walked over to Huangfu Zhentian's side as she looked at Yiqing Luo, and explained in a warm and polite voice. Miss Yi, grandfather doesn't mean that. But, according to our Huangfu family's rules, like this cousin brother, as a branch descendant of Huangfu family, because of a woman, if his Huangfu bloodline is stimulated, then this woman will be the destined person of this branch descendant. There was such a saying? That Xiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi didn't seem to have any problems with Huangfu bloodline, or the destined person, as though he saw through Yiqing Luo's thoughts. Huangfu family's eldest young master Huangfu Dongyu also explained, because in cousin Pei Sheng's body, there is half an ordinary person's blood. Generally speaking, it's very difficult to stimulate his Huangfu bloodline. Huangfu family's third young master Huangfu Qifei naturally didn't want to fall behind, and let the both of them snatch the limelight in front of his grandfather as he immediately continued, for cousin Pei Sheng's innate talent and bloodline, it's possible that he will never be able to stimulate his Huangfu bloodline in his entire life. And to be able to stimulate this potential, it's because he has an extremely strong will, wanting to protect someone's will. The three siblings looked at each other. Then Huangfu Fengyan continued, so Huangfu family would set such a rule since ancient times. There were three people's explanations, which helped Huangfu Zhentian out of the predicament. Huangfu Zhentian's grave expression had just eased up. Soon after, a cold and indifferent voice rang out. So, you still have your eyes on this lord's woman? This voice was heard. The entire main hall fell into a deathly silence. The faces of the three Huangfu siblings turned deathly pale. Of course not. Huangfu Fengyan resisted the pressure and said, Miss Yi and Dizun's relationship is as deep as the ocean. We just that you can't accept my Zishi? Yi Qingluo's cold voice interrupted Huangfu Fengyan's words. She arched a disdainful smile and raised her eyes. Who told you that I was the one who awakened Pei Sheng's bloodline? This is cousin Pei Sheng himself. Huangfu Fengyan was pressured by this imposing aura to the point that she found it hard to breathe. A trace of jealousy flashed in the depths of her eyes. How long had it been since they last met? Why Yi Qingluo's ability and her imposing manner had become even more threatening. I didn't. Pei Sheng's eyes immediately widened as he shook his head fiercely towards Dmo Xian's direction. I don't know them. How could I tell them this? It's you. Huangfu Fengyan's face was pale as she carefully looked at Huangfu Zhentian. She anxiously pushed the blame onto Pei Sheng. Looking at Huangfu Fengyan's expression, how would Huangfu Zhentian still not understand? Chapter 3861. That kid's Huangfu blood meridian is not important. Huangfu Zhentian interrupted Huangfu Fengyan's words as he spoke in a deep voice. My motive is to bring the Huangfu family's bloodline back to Huangfu family. Yi Qingluo couldn't help but burst out laughing when she heard that. She squinted her eyes as she shot a glance at Pei Sheng's direction. Pei Sheng's expression was extremely ugly as his eyes sunk, and he clenched his fists tightly as his muscles tensed up. Apparently, he was extremely angry, and his heart was surging with raging waves. Yi Qingluo tilted her head as her gaze shifted towards Huangfu Zhentian calmly. Her pink lips curled upwards with some traces of ridicule, as though she was provoking him. Huangfu Zhentian's white brows creased into a bundle. But when he saw that tall and slender figure behind Yi Qingluo, he forcefully suppressed the whirlpool in his eyes. Yi Qingluo crossed her arms as she gave a smile which was indeed asking for a beating. Old Master Huangfu's words are wrong. According to the rules passed down by your Huangfu family's ancestors, I feel that the matter of who stimulated Pei Sheng's potential is extremely important. When she said that, it instantly caused the various powerhouses' cultivators to draw in a cold breath. All of them were guessing. What was Yi Qingluo's intention? Could it be that she really had some thoughts about Pei Sheng? Did she really want to become Pei Sheng's destined person? Had she neglected? The overlord was still by the side. Not only the surrounding cultivators were shocked. Even Huangfu Zhentian frowned slightly, because of Yi Qingluo's words. Of course, he didn't feel that Yi Qingluo wanted to become Pei Sheng's destined person, which was why she didn't let this matter go. Could it be that she wanted to? Huangfu Zhentian's astute eyes flickered as he glanced at Gu Zixi direction. As expected, the next moment, he heard the young lady's chilly voice, because the person who stimulated Pei Sheng's potential isn't me, but my Zixi. Huangfu Zhentian's eyes flashed past a sliver of understanding. He gave a cold snort in disdain. It was very soft, but Yi Qingluo, who was standing nearby, could clearly hear Huangfu Zhentian's cold snort. She could also clearly see the disdain in his eyes. It was just a glance. Yi Qingluo could tell what he was thinking. The corners of Zhang Xian's lips curled up into a mocking smile. You can ask Pei Sheng whether it's true or not. As the person involved, he should know better than anyone else. The topic was once again thrown to Pei Sheng. Pei Sheng's eyes narrowed, and his expression was cold. There wasn't a trace of respect in his eyes when he looked at Huangfu Zhentian. No matter who activated it, it has nothing to do with you. I, Pei Sheng, am surnamed Pei, and I don't know your so-called Huangfu clan. After saying that, he raised his wrist. He stared unblinkingly at his wrist, at the hand that was covered with wrinkles. Let go. It was obvious that Pei Sheng's emotions were very unstable at the moment. Stinking kid. Huangfu Zhentian was stunned by Pei Sheng's gaze, and his white brows knit together tightly as he wanted to berate Pei Sheng. But in the next instant, a slight gust of wind attacked. Then, his hand that was clasping Pei Sheng's wrist was released by a gentle force. Huangfu Zhentian saw the young girl's bright and beautiful figure squeezing into the crowd. He loosened his grip on Pei Sheng. Pei Sheng was pushed away by the girl. The young girl's slender figure blocked in front of Pei Sheng. She looked at Huang Fuzhentian indifferently with a pair of cold and enchanting eyes. Huang Fuzhentian had always been in a high position. He had almost never met with such an attitude. Now he was being targeted time and time again by a young lady. Chapter 3862. Yiqing Luo naturally felt the fury in Huang Fuzhentian's eyes when he looked at her. She didn't really care. She had her own man as her backer. Even if Huang Fuzhentian was truly enraged, she wasn't worried that it would blow up. After all, her family Zhao Xian's reputation was still resounding. Yes, that's right, she's a bully. Was she stupid? Why wouldn't he hug a thigh? Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose as she met Huang Fuzhentian's eyes without any fear as she smiled sweetly. He knows who was the one who stimulated his potential, and I believe you all have a way to verify it. As for the few of you from the Huangfu family, you came all the way to the Earth domain, and even old Master Huangfu came personally. This indeed shows your sincerity. However, how can old Master be sure that Pei Sheng really wants to go back with you? She paused for a moment, then sneered. You said that you want to bring Pei Sheng back to the Huangfu family. Does that mean that Pei Sheng has to give up everything that he has fought for in the land and go back with you? Why? Yiqing Luo's words were impolite and straightforward. Huang Fuzhentian's face darkened with a swoosh. Yiqing Luo gave a ridiculing laugh as she continued. Just based on the fact that you think he's a collateral bloodline of the Huangfu family? Just because you think he activated the Huangfu bloodline? So he has to return to the Huangfu clan? Miss Yi, Huang Fudongyu shouted sternly with a gloomy face. Don't think that you can be so unscrupulous just because you have the support of His Majesty. This is the Huangfu family's old master after all. Be more polite with your words. He stood up, his eyes filled with anger. The way he looked at Yiqing Luo was as though he was looking at an enemy. When Yiqing Luo heard that, she couldn't help but let out a ha sound as her eyes were filled with ridicule. You should be glad that you're from the Huangfu family, otherwise I'll just rely on my Xian to back me up, not even bothering about you. Do you understand? Yiqing Luo. Huangfu Fengyan was unable to restrain her anger as she totally didn't use her brain as she bellowed out Yiqing Luo's full name from her throat. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she gave an unattainable smile. That was how he pretended to be. If you have the guts, come and bite me. Heh. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with disdain and ridicule, as though it was pricked by needles, pricking Huangfu Fengyan's eyes. Huangfu Fengyan was so angry that her entire body was trembling. Her demonic eyes, one gold and one ink, flashed with anger and jealousy. She bared her teeth and was just about to open her mouth to rebuke Yiqing Luo. However, it was forcefully suppressed by Huang Fuzhentian's domineering voice. Miss Yi, you seem to have a lot of opinions about our Huangfu clan? Snatching someone from me just because of a disagreement. Why can't I have any opinions? Yiqing Luo chuckled as she retorted. Huang Fuzhentian placed his hands behind his back, and his aura had calmed down. However, the domineering dignity of a superior was still there. He didn't continue to tangle with Yiqing Luo, but turned his sight towards Pei Sheng. Lad, you're not willing to follow us back to Huangfu family? Pei Sheng looked at Huang Fuzhentian. The emotions in his eyes were cold and complicated, hiding too many emotions. When he heard Huang Fuzhentian's question, Pei Sheng's fists suddenly clenched tightly as the veins on his forehead popped out. He was practically gritting his teeth as he squeezed out word by word from the slits of his teeth. I don't want. Chapter 3863. Pei Sheng in the Earth Realm, you'll forever be a nobody, but in the Huangfu family can give you the best resources and preferential treatment, allowing your ability to advance by leaps and bounds. Huang Fuzhentian's voice was steady and calm, as though he was tempting something. To ordinary people, this was indeed a temptation. In this era where the strong were revered and ability was supreme, to be able to obtain sufficient resources to advance by leaps and bounds. This was the target which all cultivators yearned for. No one was willing to be under others. But Huang Fu Zhentian's temptation totally didn't make Pei Sheng's expression change. He was unmoved as he continued his unfinished words. I'm not willing. There wasn't even a hint of hesitation in his tone. Huang Fu Zhentian's expression sunk instantly. Do you know what you're rejecting? I'm not interested. Pei Sheng's eyes sparkled with dark golden light as a hurricane surged. I'm doing very well in the Earth realm. Since you've never appeared for the past 19 years then. I don't need you in the future. His voice was tense as though he was suppressing something. That look of a trapped beast made one's heart palpitate. Yi Qingluo frowned as she was just about to open her mouth to pacify Pei Sheng's agitated emotions. The warm and soft little hand which was holding on to her suddenly withdrew from her palm. Gu Zixi had already jogged over and hugged Pei Sheng from behind. The lady's delicate fragrance and the warmth of her hands made the raging emotions in Pei Sheng's body gradually calm down. His tightly clenched fist slowly loosened as it covered the back of the lady's hand. His emotions had stabilized. The hurricane surging in his eyes had also stopped. He looked towards Huang Fu Zhentian again. His emotions were extremely indifferent. Please return. Huang Fu Zhentian's brows creased tightly. His eyes sparkled with shrewd glint as he sized up the two who were hugging each other. In his heart, he seemed to be thinking about something. When Huang Fu Fengyan saw this, she silently guessed Huang Fu Zhentian's thoughts as she spoke out. Pei Sheng, this is your only chance. What can you do in the Earth realm? Even if you feel that it's wrong for the Huang Fu family to ignore you for so many years. But now, Grandpa has come to pick you up personally. What are you dissatisfied with? Every single word of his was mocking Pei Sheng for being insensible. He secretly mocked Pei Sheng for taking advantage of him. Without waiting for Pei Sheng to speak, Huang Fu Fengyan continued. Or are you saying that you can't bear to part with that woman? For a woman like her to confess her love to a man in public and throw herself into his embrace without any sense of propriety, justice and honor, such a woman isn't worthy of our Huang Fu clan. Pei Sheng didn't even bat an eyelid at Huang Fu Fengyan's previous sentence. However, when Huang Fu Fengyan spoke her next sentence, Huang Yu's eyes widened. Pei Sheng's gaze flickered with coldness as she swiftly shot towards Huang Fu Fengyan. Compared to a barbaric, rude, arrogant, despotic, and malicious woman like you, Zixi is 1,000 times better than you. You. Huang Fu Fengyan's face twisted. He actually dared to compare that kind of woman with her. He even dared to humiliate her? Third Miss Huang Fu's words are really laughable. Yi Qingluo scoffed lightly as she spoke out in ridicule. My Zixi is merely bravely expressing her feelings, pouring out her love to the man whom she likes and also likes her. What's wrong with that? Chapter 3864. This sentence made Huang Fu Fengyan so angry that her face turned red, and her eyes turned black. Her face was ferocious, and her demonic eyes flickered with resentment. Just as she was about to fight back in exasperation, Huang Fu Zhentian's steady voice interrupted Huang Fu Fengyan's words. Pei Sheng, don't you want to know about your mother? Pei Sheng suddenly raised his head and stared fixedly at Huang Fu Zhentian. Huang Fu Zhentian raised his white brows, looked at Pei Sheng again and repeated, Come back to the Huang Fu clan with me, and I will tell you everything about your mother. Also, why you're in the Earth domain, and the reason why we haven't looked for you for many years. I can tell you everything. Then his gaze faintly glanced at Gu Zixi. Also, if you really like that woman, I agree to let you bring her back to the Huang Fu clan. Pei Sheng pursed his lips tightly, and his face was dark, but he didn't speak. But his pair of ink-like eyes revealed the emotions in the depths of his heart. Pei Sheng, in this world, only the people of our Huang Fu clan are your family. Could it be that you're really willing to part ways with us when you know you still have a family member alive? Huang Fu Zhentian seemed to understand Pei Sheng's weakness. He began to use kinship to persuade Pei Sheng. Every single word was like a sharp blade stabbing into Pei Sheng's heart. His muscles tightened even more. On his handsome face, the veins on his forehead seemed as if they were about to burst out. The hand that pressed on the back of Gu Zixi's hand also unconsciously increased the strength. The woman's fair and delicate little hand was pinched until it turned red. But Gu Zixi didn't struggle and let him pinch her hand. Her other hand gently wrapped around his waist. and her voice was gentle and full of firmness. Pei Sheng, no matter where you go, I will follow you, so don't worry about me, just follow what you think in your heart. It had to be said that these 9 years of getting along made them the people who understood each other the best. Gu Zishi knew the deepest thoughts in Pei Sheng's heart. Indeed, Huang Fuzhentian used kinship correctly. He used Pei Sheng's mother to make Pei Sheng unable to resist. But because of this, Pei Sheng's disgust towards Huang Fuzhentian grew even deeper. The hatred in his heart grew even more intense. Because, old Master Huangfu. The girl's cold voice was filled with mockery. Gu Zishi immediately raised her head to look at Yi Qingluo. A pair of beautiful eyes flickered slightly. There were many things that she could not say on behalf of Pei Sheng. Because Huang Fuzhentian was Pei Sheng's senior. She wanted to be with Pei Sheng. There were many things that had to be considered. But Yi Qingluo was different. Yi Qingluo had the overlord, and had no other relations with the Huangfu family. Many words Yi Qingluo could say. As expected at the next instance, he heard Yi Qingluo continuing, Huangfu family's people have always loved to use this kind of method to threaten this junior. Yi Qingluo's expression was solemn and cold. There wasn't even a hint of a smile on his face. His eyes were filled with mockery and disdain. This was after the appearance of Huang Fuzhentian. This was the first time Yi Qingluo's emotions had fluctuated so much. Yi Qingluo's interruption made Huang Fuzhentian frown. A pair of astute eyes looked at Yi Qingluo unhappily. Chapter 3865. Shut up. When Yi Qingluo finished her words, Huang Fufengyan subconsciously stopped her with a stern shout. She pounced towards Yi Qingluo in a frenzy. Huang Fudongyu and Huang Fuqifei glanced at each other, and a trace of panic simultaneously appeared on their faces. Miss Yi, grandfather only wants his grandson to return back to his original identity. Why do you have to be so overbearing? Huang Fuqifei's gentle brows flashed a treacherous cold glint. Huang Fudongyu's face sunk as his expression turned gloomy and dangerous. Miss Yi, although the overlord is around and you can be unbridled, but before you speak or do anything, please consider the overlord. His words hinted at Dmo Xian to hear. He didn't want Dmo Xian to ruin his reputation because of a lady. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a voice suddenly rang out. He heard Yi Qingluo's ridiculing laughter rang. He looked towards the young lady. He saw the young lady leaping upwards as her figure agilely avoided Huang Fufengyan's attack. Following that, like a butterfly, she pounced into the tall man's arms. Her dress fluttered as a brilliant red glow swept past. The young lady nestled in the man's arms as her brows rose and her smile was like a flower. Her long and narrow eyes seemed to have a blossoming rose at the corner of her eyes. She was devastatingly beautiful to the extreme. She was laughing. Her laughter was filled with ridicule, and her gaze was filled with a thick sense of ridicule. Huang Fudongyu's expression turned gloomier. His hands, which were hanging by his sides, were tightly clenched into fists. He suppressed his anger and was about to open his mouth, but he was interrupted by a miserable shriek. Ah! At the same time that sharp, miserable shriek was heard, something was flying towards him from the front. Huang Fudongyu evaded and was about to avoid it. But old Master Huangfu's sleeve suddenly moved as a gust of wind surged over. That thing which was crashing over reduced its speed and crashed onto Huang Fudongyu. Huang Fudongyu then saw it clearly. The thing which crashed onto him. Wasn't it his fourth sister Huang Fufengyan? What a disgrace. Huang Fuzhentian brushed his sleeves as he stared at the both of them with a gloomy expression. Huang Fudongyu and Huang Fufengyan supported each other and stood up. Then she heard the man's deep, dark, and slightly cold voice ring out. Since you know this sovereign is here, you should respect this sovereign's woman a little more. His tone was clearly calm and indifferent, yet it made one's heart tremble. For no reason, one could hear the thick warning in his voice. For the sake of old Master Huangfu, I'll spare your life. If you dare to touch Lil Luo again, I'll make sure you won't be able to return. Huang Fufengyan's face was pale with fright, and her delicate body could not help but tremble. Huang Fudongyu immediately steadied her. Immediately after, He felt a cold gaze that was as sharp as an ice blade fall on his body. His heart skipped a beat. He suddenly raised his head. His eyes met with a pair of peach blossom eyes that were as cold as the frost of December. As for what young Master Huangfu said, you don't have to worry about it. Lil Luo, or doesn't need to consider for this sovereign at all. Whatever she wants to do, this sovereign will accompany her to do it. This sovereign loves to see her doing whatever she wants to do, saying whatever she wants to say. He enunciated each word in a clear voice. Everyone in the main hall heard it exceptionally clearly. These words, actually he could totally not need to say it. Yiqing Luo knew it too. But he still said it. Because he intentionally wanted the entire world to know how much he pampered her. Chapter 3866. Dmo Xian's words were like a tight slap on Huangfu Dongyu's face. Most importantly, Huangfu Dongyu could only endure the feeling of being slapped in the face and didn't dare to have any other emotions. After such a disturbance, a trace of relief flashed on Huangfu Qifei's refined face. He cleared his throat and said gently, "You're right, Dizun. Big Brother and Feng Yan were indeed too reckless. However, Big Brother is right. Grandfather only wants his family to be by his side. I'm sure Miss Yi wouldn't want Pei Sheng to be separated from his family, right?" Huangfu Qifei asked in an amiable tone, but the contents of the words were all criticizing Yiqing Luo for being overbearing and not sensible. Yiqing Luo laughed when she heard that. His eyes were filled with mockery and a mocking cold glint, which was flowing quickly. She ignored Huangfu Qifei's words. She just laughed sarcastically. His gaze was deep and mocking as he looked at them. That gaze that seemed to see through everything caused Huangfu Qifei's heart to be unable to help but tighten. It was as if she had already seen through their plan. A trace of imperceptible coldness flashed past Huangfu Qifei's handsome and warm face. He weighed his words in his mind. Just as he was about to open his mouth and change the topic, Huangfu Zhentian lifted his feet and walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The old man's movements. He had also successfully stopped Huangfu Qifei from speaking. The three people from the Huangfu clan looked at Huangfu Zhentian almost at the same time. Even Huangfu Dongyu and Huangfu Fengyan didn't have the anger of being wronged on their faces. On the contrary, he seemed slightly flustered. Seeing that Huangfu Zhentian didn't have any hesitation in his footsteps, Yi Qingtong's eyes lit up. Huangfu Qifei clenched his fists and immediately chased after him, thinking of an excuse to stop the old man. However, before he could speak, Huangfu Zhentian turned his gaze over. Huangfu Qifei's entire body froze on the spot. He stopped chasing after the old man. He stood stiffly on the spot and lowered his head. Huangfu Fengyan and Huangfu Dongyu anxiously stomped their feet and rushed over. They bumped into Huangfu Qifei and hinted something with their eyes. Huangfu Qifei didn't even raise his head. Huangfu Zhentian stopped when he was just 3 steps away from Yiqing Luo. Although he was old, however, his domineering and majesty did not diminish, but instead increased. He fixed his gaze on Yiqing Luo, looking at Yiqing Luo's smirk of ridicule. The muscles on his old face twitched, and a solemn look flashed across his eyes. "Miss Yi, it is indeed our Huangfu family's fault for coming to the Earth domain rashly, and trying to take Pei Sheng away without explaining everything clearly." He paused for a moment before his voice gradually deepened. As for the 3 people from the Huangfu family, it was the Huangfu family's fault for not disciplining them properly, and causing them to make a fool of themselves. If Miss Yi is displeased, I apologize to Miss Yi on their behalf. This wave of reversal made Yiqing Luo dumbfounded. He could no longer maintain the sneer on his face. She furrowed her brows and looked at the old man in front of her, who had always been sitting at the top of the pyramid. For some reason, he felt that he was very dispirited at this moment. Yiqing Luo had just recovered from her daze. Then, Huangfu Zhentian's actions shocked her to the point that she took 2 steps back. Both her hands grabbed hold of Dmo Xian's arm. She saw Huangfu Zhentian standing in front of Yiqing Luo, as he shed away his unattainable high position, and slowly lowered his noble head towards Yiqing Luo. Chapter 3867. Grandfather. Grandfather. When Huangfu trio saw this, they couldn't help but cried out in shock. They couldn't believe that their own grandfather would actually lower his head to a young lady. Cough. That. She was used to Huangfu Zhentian's overbearing and dignified look. Suddenly seeing Huangfu Zhentian make such a move, Yi Qingluo was not only dazed, she was extremely shocked. Old Master Huangfu, what are you doing? Huangfu Zhentian didn't raise his head as his voice carried a slight tremble. Miss Yi, the Qiao Jin you mentioned. What's your relationship with him? Qiao Jin? Yi Qingluo's slender brows creased as she instantly understood. She was ridiculing Huangfu Zhentian for making use of Pei Sheng's mother's matter to threaten Pei Sheng. She also mentioned Qiao Jin. So, Huangfu Zhentian suddenly made such a move was because of Qiao Jin. She narrowed her eyes slightly. His gaze swept towards the three members of the Huangfu clan behind Huangfu Zhentian who had panicked expressions, and he suddenly understood something. She felt that. Earlier Huangfu Fengyan suddenly made a move on her, and Huangfu Dongyu's accusation was somewhat strange. They knew that the overlord was around. One made a move and the other spoke rudely. Did they not want their lives anymore? Apparently, they were intentionally creating a disturbance. At that time, she was still thinking what these three were planning and trying to hide. After hearing Huangfu Zhentian's question, she finally understood. Those three. They were intentionally trying to make Old Master Huangfu ignore the name Qiao Jin. From Old Master Huangfu's actions and tone, Old Master Huangfu's feelings towards Qiao Jin were very deep and very real. But Qiao Jin seemed to have a huge hatred towards the Huangfu family. There was a high possibility that it was related to the trio from Huangfu family. As for Old Master Huangfu, he totally didn't know about it. Otherwise, those three wouldn't have such an expression. Before I answer your question, will Old Master Huangfu please answer my question first? Yi Qingluo's brows rose as she looked at Huangfu Zhentian. Huangfu Zhentian raised his head as something seemed to be surging in his eyes. Yi Qingluo asked, Qiao Jin and you, what's your relationship? He's my grandson. Huangfu Zhentian's voice trembled slightly as the emotions on his face were complicated. He is my most promising grandson, but... He paused, lowered his head, and did not continue speaking. Yi Qingluo pursed her lips. Qiao Jin is my brother. Brother? Huangfu Zhentian suddenly raised his head with an excited expression. Then is he also in the land? Where is he? Can I see him? Not a trace of falsehood could be discerned from Huangfu Zhentian's eyes. Yi Qingluo shook her head. He's not here. I know some things regarding him. Under Huangfu Zhentian's hopeful gaze, she continued, Jinzi doesn't have a good relationship with the Huangfu clan, right? It's not that he's unwilling to return to the Huangfu clan, but there's no place for him in the Huangfu clan. So, Old Master Huangfu, I don't really understand why you're so agitated after hearing Jinzi's name. Why can't the Huangfu clan accept him? Huangfu Zhentian's eyes opened wide with excitement. He's the successor of the Huangfu clan. How could the Huangfu clan possibly not tolerate him? It's him. He wasn't willing to stay in the Huangfu clan because of his mother. All these, did you hear it from him personally, or someone else told you? Yi Qingluo pointed out something. Huangfu Zhentian's pupils contracted as his entire body tensed up, trembling slightly. Chapter 3868. Shut up. Huangfu Zhentian glanced coldly at Huangfu Fengyan, and his voice was low and cold. Don't think that I don't know what exactly the three of you are planning. I'll settle the score with you later. At any rate, Huangfu Zhentian was once the patriarch of the Huangfu clan. After his son inherited the position of the patriarch, he was able to maintain his prestige outside. It was sufficient to prove that Huangfu Zhentian wasn't an idiot. Yi Qingluo could tell the three of them's little tricks. He naturally sensed it as well. Looks like Qiao Jin's matter was also related to the three of them. When he thought up to here, Huangfu Zhentian's eyes sank slightly. Old man Huangfu. Yi Qingluo didn't want to get involved in their family matters. Moreover, this was obviously not the time to discuss family matters. The surrounding profounders from the various powers were watching a good show. Her words drew Huang Fuzhentian's attention to her. Jin Zi's matter involves too many people, and it also involves the internal relationships of your Huangfu clan. It's not appropriate for me to make any comments, and it's not appropriate for me to discuss too much with you. She looked at Pei Sheng and continued, however, the Huangfu family still has to give Pei Sheng an explanation, and you should respect his wishes, not yours. Perhaps it was because of her relationship with Qiao Jin. Huang Fuzhentian actually didn't refute a single word. He looked at Pei Sheng, and there was an apologetic look in his deep and bright eyes. You're right. I should respect his wishes. I shouldn't be like this. Back then, Qiao Jin, that child, was because the words were on the tip of his tongue, but he stopped himself. Then it turned into a heavy sigh. Pei Sheng, I'll give you some time to consider. Do you want to leave with us or stay in the Earth domain? I'll respect your choice. 3 days later, I'll come to the Qiao residence again to hear your answer. After Huang Fuzhentian finished speaking, his body trembled as he turned around and walked towards the entrance of the main hall. He turned around. His silhouette looked extremely lonely and dispirited. The 3 Huangfu siblings looked at Huang Fuzhentian's back view and looked at Yiqing Luo. He wanted to say something, but when he thought of what Huang Fuzhentian had said just now, he felt a chill run down his spine. They opened their mouths and closed them again. In the end, he only called out "Grandpa" in a low voice and hurriedly followed up. When he reached the door of the main hall, Huang Fuzhentian suddenly stopped moving. He just turned his body sideways. The direction of his eyes was looking towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Miss Yi, I'm really sorry. If it's possible, I would like to see him. After that, Huang Fuzhentian closed his eyes tightly. He closed his eyes. It made the wrinkles on his face even more obvious. He didn't wait for Yiqing Luo to reply. In the blink of an eye, the few figures standing at the entrance of the main hall had already disappeared into thin air. Their speed was so fast that no one could clearly see how they left. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The surrounding people were so shocked that they cried out in surprise. After the incident with Huang Fuzhentian, Yiqing Luo and the rest didn't have the mood to eat anymore. Various powerhouses' cultivators were full of gossip and thoughts, but in front of Yiqing Luo and the others, they didn't dare to discuss about it. When Yiqing Luo and the rest left, no one stopped him. After returning to their courtyard, Yiqing Luo took a look at Pei Sheng, who had been following behind her with a grave expression as his brows were tightly knitted. Chapter 3869. Pei Sheng stood in front of Yiqing Luo as he lowered his head. Hearing Yiqing Luo's question, his back suddenly stiffened as he raised his head and looked at Yiqing Luo. The expression on his face turned into one of panic and helplessness. I don't know. Him at this moment. He had completely dropped the explosive, imposing manner when he was facing Huang Fuzhentian in the main hall. His entire person seemed to have lost his target as he couldn't find his own direction. Even that flickering dark golden light in his eyes seemed to have lost its luster. Yiqing Luo looked at his look as she felt a little helpless. A person's character depended on that person's living environment. Like Pei Sheng, after his father died, he was ridiculed by the citizens. All he could hear were those unbearable words and discussions. He had low self-esteem. Since young, he had low self-esteem. Other than the matters regarding the Treasures Exchange Hall, he wasn't able to make a decisive decision. He would ponder over it. He would consider everything. What's more, he wasn't able to make a decision. Facing many matters, he subconsciously wanted to escape. It could be said that for so many years, if Gu Zishi wasn't by his side, not to mention the fact that he could keep the Treasures Exchange Hall till now, perhaps he himself wouldn't be able to survive. So when she heard Pei Sheng's lost tone, Yiqing Luo wasn't surprised at all. She stared straight at Pei Sheng as her gaze was calm. This concerns your future, so you must think clearly. No one can give you the answer that you want the most. Her words paused slightly as her vision looked towards the lady beside Pei Sheng as she added another sentence. See, she can't give you an answer either. Pei Sheng opened his mouth wanting to say something, but when his mouth opened, his mind went blank. He pursed his lips tightly as his face turned green. Gu Zishi, who was beside him, held his hand tightly as her fingers squeezed hard. Pei Xing looked at her. She smiled as her brows arched as she looked at him, as though she was consoling him. Pei Xing lowered his eyelids as he opened his mouth bitterly. His face was filled with a lost and helpless expression. His eyes also became dim and lifeless. His voice was filled with helplessness. He looked exactly like a puppy. However, Pei Xing didn't even realize it. He had already changed the way he addressed Gu Zishi. She was no longer his little sister. Gu Zishi was obviously in a good mood. The feelings that he had been secretly in love with for so many years had finally received a response. He had finally walked out of the darkness and into the light. He could finally look at Pei Xing openly and say, "I like you." These actions required a great deal of courage. She finally did it. She finally got the answer she wanted. Furthermore, she understood Pei Xing. Although Pei Xing's entire body was filled with hostility when facing Huangfu Jintian, Pei Xing didn't dare to underestimate him. But she knew. He knew that Pei Xing was happy in the depths of her heart. Because in this world, at least there were still his relatives who were related to him by blood. Even if he was angry at the Huangfu clan for not caring about his mother and him for so many years, in the end, his heart was still happy. Otherwise, with Pei Xing's disposition, he would definitely be extremely resolute and refuse Huangfu Jintian. Chapter 3870. Pei Xing's body stiffened. He wanted to retract his hand, which was intertwined with the lady's fingers. But it was held tightly by the lady. Pei Xing lowered his head and looked at his wide palm, that fair and soft skin. His heart suddenly started to race. From this angle, Gu Zishi could totally see his reddened ears. The smile in Gu Zishi's eyes deepened as she held his hand and placed it in front of her chest. A pair of beautiful eyes, moist and filled with tenderness, looked at him with a smile as she continued to speak word by word. "You will never be alone." Pei Xing's pupils shrank abruptly. That big palm which was held tightly by the lady. Subconsciously, he held the lady's hand. He gripped it tightly. In his eyes, the dark golden glow once again regained its original brilliance. Zishi. Pei Xing's heart suddenly seemed to be filled with some kind of energy. It was no longer that empty and pale feeling, totally not knowing what he was thinking about. Luo. When Pei Xing looked at Yiqing Luo again, the expression on his face was no longer in a daze. Even the tone which he spoke had become more solemn. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she looked at him. Pei Xing continued, "Huangfu. Old master's words, do you think can be trusted?" In the end, he still couldn't call out the term grandfather. Yiqing Luo replied very quickly, "What aspect are you asking about?" "That is, he wants to bring me, and that friend of yours called Qiao Jin, back to Huangfu family. Is that true?" After Pei Xing asked this question, he hurriedly added another sentence. "I know this choice must be made by myself. I just want to confirm. If you're asking about this aspect, I think it's true." Yiqing Luo placed one hand on the stone table, as her slender fingers, slightly curled up, caressing the table. Following the movement of her fingertips, the expression on her face became even more indifferent. Generally speaking, large aristocratic families will indeed not allow their own bloodline to wander outside. After all, this kind of matter involves many unknown factors. For example, other aristocratic families know that their bloodline has wandered outside. Making use of this point to create trouble will cause some unnecessary trouble. For example, if people from other aristocratic families knew about it, it would greatly affect the reputation of the family. For example, if a member of the bloodline who has wandered outside marries someone else and gives birth to a child, then the bloodline they leave behind will spread further and further. If something were to happen, it could easily affect the entire clan. Yiqing Luo consecutively gave a few examples. Seeing that Pei Xing's expression had turned extremely ugly, she softened her tone. "Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that old Master Huangfu is worried about the bloodline of the Huangfu family, and doesn't want to see the bloodline of the Huangfu family suffering outside. After all, you're someone who has awakened the Huangfu clan's bloodline. Your eyes are very eye-catching. If the enemies of the Huangfu clan know of your existence, it's very likely that they'll come looking for you. Therefore, the summary above indicates that Grandpa Huangfu's desire to take you back to the Huangfu family is absolutely real. Yi Qingluo's words didn't make Pei Sheng's expression turn better. Instead, it made Pei Sheng's expression turn even uglier. Yi Qingluo could tell, but she didn't intentionally bring it up. It was as if she did not see his expression. He waited for a while. Chapter 3871. For example, to give you resources to allow you to advance by leaps and bounds. Yi Qingluo raised her brows. Such words. Even without Yi Qingluo's reminder, Pei Sheng could guess it himself. This was just a gimmick from the Huangfu clan. Pei Sheng didn't know much about the Huangfu clan. However, he also knew that the Huangfu family was one of the 4 great families in the Heaven Realm. This kind of aristocratic family was full of capable people. His descendants were all at the top of the clan. He was from a branch family and had never received any training since he was young. It was only now that he had awakened the Huangfu bloodline. Apart from the fact that half of his blood belonged to the Huangfu family, he had no feelings for them whatsoever. How could the Huangfu family really waste their so-called resources on an outsider like him? That's right, outsiders. To the Huangfu family, he Pei Sheng was an outsider. Pei Sheng's eyes flickered and he asked again, "Then is there something between that friend of yours and the Huangfu family? Why is he unwilling to return to the Huangfu clan?" She looked at Huangfu Zhentian's expression and attitude when he mentioned Xiao Jin. Pei Sheng could see it too. Huangfu Zhentian was very concerned about that person called Xiao Jin. He noticed that the man's name had been mentioned. In Huangfu Zhentian's eyes, he didn't exist at all. They are more complicated than you. Yi Qingluo's slender fingers tapped lightly on the table as she said. He's not returning to Huangfu family, not because he's unwilling, but someone doesn't want him to go back. Or rather, on the surface, she wanted him to return. But once he really went back, those who resisted would think of all sorts of ways to decapitate him. Without hesitation, Pei Sheng blurted out, "You mean the 3 young masters and daughters of the Huangfu clan?" Not just that. It was absolutely impossible for those 3 to suppress Xiao Jin in the Huangfu clan. After all, Xiao Jin was the only successor of the Huangfu clan. If there wasn't a mastermind behind all of this, it would be impossible. So, the things behind this were very complicated. Once things got complicated, it would be even more difficult to deal with. Xiao Jin's matter is totally different from yours, so there's no value for reference. Yi Qingluo raised her head, as her eyes looked at Pei Sheng calmly. Suddenly, her fingers that were tapping on the table paused. The voice suddenly stopped. This inexplicably caused a certain amount of pressure in Pei Sheng's heart. His entire body tensed up as his eyes stared unblinkingly at Yi Qingluo's hand, which was placed on the table. However, regardless of whether you want to follow Old Master Huangfu to the Huangfu clan, you must be careful of those 3 people. If you're harmed, Old Master Huangfu might not uphold justice for you. Yi Qingluo's voice was suppressed to a very low and deep voice. This kind of voice caused Pei Sheng's emotions to tighten. His heart thumped uncontrollably. Yi Qingluo's face was cold and her calm emotions had not dissipated. She slowly stood up. Even though he was sitting down, his aura was already 8 meters tall. This time he stood up. His aura was fully unleashed. It caused Pei Sheng to freeze on the spot, not daring to move. "Pei Sheng, I'll still say the same thing. This is your own life. No one can help you make the decision." Yi Qingluo's voice was calm and steady. Every word was enunciated clearly. "There's no need for you to lower yourself in front of me, and no need to worry that you'll make the wrong choice, disappoint me, etc. To put it bluntly, I'm not anyone to you. We're just friends, just partners." The 2nd anniversary, you ask and I answer long review activity had ended. There were a total of 4 Mo Jiabao who took part. Gujiu, Mo Jiabao Gujiu. Happy 2nd anniversary of dethroning the 7 emperors. Mo Xing, Mo Jiabao Mo Xine. Happy 2nd anniversary of dethroning the 7 emperors. Familiar face baby. Mo Jiabao familiar face baby. Time is not old. Mo pavilion will not disperse ruachin. Mo jiabao ruachin. Having met you, regretted not having met earlier. Time is not old. Mo pavilion will not disperse. There were a total of 4 babies and very few people took part. Moreover, the long reviews written by the 4 babies made me very touched. Made me have the guts to have so many Mo jiabao who love me. In this lifetime, I will never regret entering this profession. The 4 babies above can add my private account. The book review is pinned to the top of the comments. Please take the initiative to add me. 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 Then provide me with the character design of your choice. I can choose 2 character designs. And the address. The deadline is August 10th before midnight. I'll go and customize the peripheral pillows on the 11th and send them over to you. Chapter 3872. Partner, do you understand? Yiqing Luo looked into his eyes as she asked word by word. Pei Sheng's pupils shrunk slightly. Yiqing Luo continued. A partner doesn't ask for any benefits, just staying by your side and supporting any decision you make. Everything you do, and what you want to do, is related to your own future. You don't need to look at my face. Perhaps it was because her aura was too strong? Or perhaps it was because her appearance had saved the treasures exchange hall and changed his fate. So when Pei Sheng was in front of her, there was a feeling as though he was inferior to her. She was clearly very gentle, okay? Why did it seem as though she was a vicious person? When Pei Sheng heard that, he shuddered as he looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. Ah Sheng, you still have 3 days to consider. You can consider carefully and ask yourself clearly what you really want. Yiqing Luo softened her tone. Pei Sheng's character had already been set, and she didn't think of changing his character. She only stood on a friend's point of view, helping him to analyze the situation clearly. Choosing kinship means giving up freedom, and also learning how to survive in a large family. Freedom of choice then. After we part ways 3 days later, you might not be able to see anyone from the Huangfu family until you die. Pei Sheng slowly lowered his head. His brows were filled with struggling melancholy. Yiqing Luo took a look at Guzishi and exchanged glances with her. She held the man's arm as her lips curled slightly. I'll give you some quiet space to think about it. She pulled Mo Xian and the rest of the brothers as they left the courtyard, leaving the quiet to Pei Sheng and Guzishi. With Guzishi around, Yiqing Luo wasn't afraid that Pei Sheng would confine himself in a predicament. After all, Guzishi wasn't an ordinary person. After dismissing the bunch of brothers who joined in the fun, Yiqing Luo pulled Mo Xian back to the room. Not waiting for Mo Xian to open his mouth, she frowned in displeasure as she put on a straight face. I asked you to rest properly but you didn't. After coaxing me to sleep, you sneaked out by yourself. Her little lips pouted as she stretched out her hand and grabbed Mo Xian's collar, pulling the man in front of her. The man's handsome face was very close to her. His face was smooth and exquisite, and his long and narrow peach blossom eyes exuded a demonic charm. Yiqing Luo maintained her composure, determined not to be captivated by his beauty. Speak. Did you sneak out to have an affair? Mo Xian's brows were filled with tenderness and pampering. His pupils were as deep as ink, like a deep pool, flickering with a few threads of dark light. Yiqing Luo was stared at by his blatant gaze. He felt his whole body heating up. Her cheeks were also unconsciously dyed crimson. You. What are you laughing at? What are you looking at? Don't try to bluff your way through. You cheated on me, didn't you? Yiqing Luo tried her best to make her voice sound more righteous and confident. After all, while she was asleep, the things he did to her, even though it was for her own good, were things that made his brothers ridicule him. Then he sneaked off to a dangerous place. People who don't know how to rest. She had to scold him to wake him up. Queen Luo didn't notice at all. Her current mood was like a capricious wife facing her doting husband. Mo Xian's smile became even more joyous. His entire face was like the blossoming of spring flowers, overflowing with elegance, making one unable to look away. Yiqing Luo's heart seemed to be agitated by thunder. For a moment, the feeling of losing her soul made her dizzy. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.